Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Green Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 833 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And we have very good news today. Ukraine has resumed hitting Russian refineries en masse, and also we're hearing that Putin is freaking out. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, as we have gotten unbelievable news today that the Ukrainians have once again started to resume their oil refinery strikes, hitting and destroying a refinery within the area of Rostov on Don. We were also able to get additional news from inside the area around Moscow that Vladimir Putin is directly threatening the West with war, also stating that he is planning on shipping Russian army equipment and weapons to groups that will strike the Western world, and then on top of all that, saying that he's not threatening the West and that they didn't even start the war in Ukraine, they simply defended themselves from Ukrainian invasion or something along those lines. We were then also able to see that meanwhile, while the Russians are invading Ukraine and are inside of Ukraine at the moment, that Ukrainian forces have been able to manage once again to inflict incredibly high casualties on Russian forces in the Vovchansk, Bakhmut, and Avdiivka front lines, and we can see that either no frontline advances have been made by the Russian offensive efforts in Bakhmut and Avdiivka, and we've also been able to hear that the Ukrainians are inflicting wildly high losses onto the Russians in the area around Vovchansk, and that the beginning of the full-on offensive is going to begin incredibly soon. We have loads, an endless load of news to cover tonight, and I gotta say that it is absolutely exciting. Some of y'all may be realizing that I'm having to lower my tone here a little bit. It's because the back of my neck is really like, it's got like a lot of tension in it, so when I'm talking in my high volume and hype voice, it's actually hurting it a good bit. So we're going to not do that. We're just going to make sure to get through the news as we see it. But moving on into the area around Moscow, we have been able to see that Putin is absolutely going crazy, insane, really, as of today. And we heard that Putin is saying that he wants to supply weapons to third parties across the world. And I'm going to play this clip right here really quickly so that way y'all can hear it and also see it. But really quickly, I'll also read the subtitles as well after we play it in its original audio. So here's the original audio.
Думаем на тему о том, что если кто-то считает возможным поставлять такое оружие в зону боевых действий для нанесения ударов по нашей территории и создания проблем для нас, то почему у нас нет права поставлять наше оружие такого же класса в те регионы мира, где будут наноситься удары по чувствительным объектам тех стран, которые делают это в отношении России? То есть
And that's the end of that clip, but now I'll play it again, and this time I'll read the subtitles for everyone who may be listening but not watching. We're thinking on the topic of that if someone thinks it's possible to supply such weapons to a war zone, speaking of Western weapons, to strike at our territory and create problems for us, why don't we have the right to supply our weapons of the same class to those regions of the world where strikes will be carried out against the sensitive facilities of those countries that are doing this to Russia? And then the clip ends right there. But we can see that he is actually saying in this clip that he wants to provide Russian-made weapons, if there are even any left, to countries that are not big fans of America, which there are very few, and also the Western world as a whole, which there are very few, and then use those weapons, those countries use those weapons on Western nations to try and destroy them. I have a feeling, based off of the track record of Russian weapons in Ukraine, that this is a pretty empty threat, even if they did provide these weapons to countries that didn't like America, because if anyone's noticed recently, it looks like Russian weapons are either few and far in between, and they also have a pretty high rate of failure before they even make it to their targets, and are very easily intercepted by modern air defense. So going off of that, I have a feeling that those threats are not really that well backed up. But then we were also able to hear that Putin doesn't actually want to take over Ukraine as of today. Now he's saying that if the United States stops transferring weapons to Ukraine, the war will end in only 2 to 3 months. And according to Putin, they're only interested in a neutral status of Ukraine. They're not trying to invade Ukraine. That's nonsense. Do you see them invading Ukraine right now? Let me go really quickly and look at this map. This does not look like a Russian invasion. This looks like a Russian peacekeeping operation, a humanitarian mission, and all they are wanting to do is make sure the Ukraine is reminded that they should remain neutral in world affairs, not join the Russian side, not be conquered by the Russians and then have a puppet government installed to support Russian interests. They just want them to be neutral. And we have to remember that although this does look like a full-on war, and we have heard that he's been threatening for quite some while that the Ukrainians are going to be crushed by the armed forces of the Russian Federation, and that the Ukrainians are a bunch of Nazis, and they're not even real people, they're actually Russians. Out of all of that, that was all simply just hearsay. Putin never said that. This is all just a peacekeeping operation, and the whole war that we've been covering, why we've been lying to y'all, there's never been a war. It just never existed in Ukraine. This is a peacekeeping operation. And then, out of all of this that he said today, he then said, at the very end of it, that they're not threatening anyone. This is the icing on the cake. But here's the clip.
Почему вы решили, что мы кому-то угрожаем? Мы никому не угрожаем. Тем более главе другого государства. Это моветон, это нехороший тон.
Now that
Man, I think he's like slightly crazy. Like, how can you like say a threat like he clearly just said a second ago, and then say, "Oh, well, you know, we actually didn't threaten anyone," in that smug tone, like he's really being smart with that.
Man, I gotta say, whoever believes this guy, Matthew, they've got to have lost their minds at this point, because the guy sits there in literally 2 sentences. The Western world, they work against us, we will work against them. We will hurt them in ways they don't even understand. And then move on from that to, we're not threatening anyone. We would never wish harm to anyone in the world. We are but a good citizen. It's like, you've got to be kidding me. I don't even know how in the world people can believe this kind of crap, because it is unbelievable to see. And also, like Matthew said, observe his tone and also his body language when he says this. He's like, oh, obviously we're not threatening anyone. Look at this.
Почему вы решили, что мы кому-то угрожаем? Мы
This is that stupid doublespeak, and the reason why this is being done, to really quickly put this out, is for some American citizens who, for some reason, like Russia more than they do the United States, whoever those people may be. So that way, when people here say, look, Putin wants to kill us all, they can go, no, he said he's not threatening anyone. Didn't you see that part of the statement? What are you, crazy? That's the whole point of doing this, so that way there's really doublespeak going on, where he says their true intentions, and then he backpedals off of it with this statement, so that way it doesn't look like he is trying to kill everyone in the West when it's brought up in discussion later. But still, this is absolutely bizarre to see something like this happening, and to see the insanity of how two-faced Putin is. He said all of this in the same meeting, in the same filmed instance. This isn't, like I will say this. Every politician in the world, everyone who's in the government, does do doublespeak. They'll say one thing and then say another later. But here in America, in most Western countries at least, usually they'll say one thing, give it about a few days, and then they'll say something completely different in a few days. Putin sits there in a single meeting, and he'll say one thing and then say the other in the same damn meeting. He doesn't even give time for you to try and forget the last statement. It's literally on top of the other. It's like a double whammy, and it's absolutely crazy to see someone doing something like that. It's mentally ill to think that anyone would even believe that when you see those two clips from the same meeting just minutes apart. But beyond that, a lot of people
I think Putin sits there. I think Putin sits there, and when he says these things like this, like he's a mob boss or something like that. Which, in fairness, he kind of is a mob boss, because the entire Russian government is basically like a big gang. But when he sits there saying that, you can tell in his head he thinks it sounds really cool. It sounds like, oh yeah, I'm Mr. Badass Putin saying this stuff. But it's like, in reality, to anybody with any intelligence, they're like, you literally just threatened people. Then you turn around and said, oh no, I didn't actually threaten anybody. It's like, dude, it's like, come on now. It's like, I'm not even sure if the Russian people look at that and think that looks really cool. It's like you're about to enter World War III. How cool is that?
Man, that's like sitting there, Matthew, like as a normal person, and you get angry with someone and you say, I'm going to beat you with a rusty hammer until you bleed out of your ears. Heads will split, blood will flow. And then you go, well, what do you mean by that? I'm not threatening you. I'm a peaceful person. I mean no harm. It's like, are you out of your damn mind? It's like, you're crazy.
A psychopath, really.
Yeah, that's called mental illness. It's something that you can actually see a lot in the common world, but you never see it on the national administrative level like that. That is a new level of mental illness, in my opinion, that has just been unseen and untapped. But beyond that, that mental illness actually has a little bit of backing behind it. There is an army right now in Ukraine, 200 to 300,000 men strong, that is still fighting there by the orders of this mentally ill person. And not only that, he did make a very interesting statement while he was being mentally ill today. He said that he would supply weapons to nations that will strike NATO allies as revenge. Now, some people have been thinking that he would actually do that. And there's really nothing that would stop him from doing that, to be all honest. But some people are saying that he's probably bluffing on that threat, which could be equally likely, considering that the Russians probably don't have any weapons to really just give around, considering that they're buying weapons from North Korea and Iran. You would expect that they probably don't have a lot to give around of their own. Otherwise, they wouldn't be buying crappy weapons from Iran and North Korea. And then some people are actually saying that it's possible but unlikely, and he probably wouldn't follow through with something like that for some kind of a reason. But it is possible if he wanted to actually do something like that. But loads of people are saying all kinds of different things about this right now, about what this could be, what this could mean, everything in between, about the statements that Putin made today, really threatening the West and everyone here on this show right now that's watching. And Matthew, what were people thinking about Putin's absolutely brain-dead statements today? And what were you thinking about them as well?
So it looks like about 46% of the audience said that Putin would actually supply weapons to nations that would end up striking NATO as revenge, while 20% said it's possible, but really it's unlikely, and 30% said Putin is simply bluffing on the entire threat itself. And on this one, I'm honestly not really entirely sure which nations he's referring to, because I don't really know of any big or competent nation that is willing to fire on NATO on Russia's behalf, because that would drag them into a very unfortunate situation, and I don't think there's any country willing to martyr themselves in the name of Putin at the moment. Maybe in the future, maybe some country might be like that, but I don't see him right now. So unless Putin is referring to maybe arming some terrorists in the Middle East or maybe arming the cartel in Mexico, I'm not sure really what he's referring to here. But I would say that Putin would actually do something like that. If there was a nation, theoretically, that would martyr themselves, I would be with the 46%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, so we had to put this out there. Some people are saying, I saw Jay Casey say Afghanistan, Iran, and North Korea. Okay, so he said specifically NATO. So while those are countries that are hostile to the West and specifically hostile to the United States, these countries are not within distance to be able to strike NATO. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, only exists within the geographic parameters of the North Atlantic area on both sides of the Atlantic. So member states that are not in Europe are the United States and Canada. And that's it. Those are the only members that are not actually inside of the European area or the continent of Europe that are a part of NATO. Everyone else is inside of Europe. And there are no NATO members in the Eastern Pacific, and Australia and New Zealand are not members of NATO. They geographically would never be able to join NATO or be a part of it. So if Russia was to provide weapons to strike at NATO countries, those weapons would end up having to be given to a country that was local to the area of Europe or to the area of North America that would be able to use these weapons and strike on one of these countries without getting completely obliterated in return. So let's think of who in the world could do that. No one in North America. Like that's just out of the door. No one in North America could. Maybe there are a few that would not like the United States, Cuba being one, and Venezuela being another. But tell me, folks, do y'all think that Venezuela or Cuba would be able to stand up to a U.S. armed response because they fired Iskander missiles into the southeastern United States? No. No. It's like there's really no analysis needed for that. They would not be able to stand up to a U.S. response. That would lead to their governments being dismantled and replaced, and I don't really think the Russians or anyone else in the world would be able to come to their aid at this moment. Then in
Also,
Europe,
Cuba? I'm seeing people like insisting on Cuba. No, absolutely not. Like Cuba, like the Enforcer just sort of said, no country below the United States and toward the southern part of the United States would be able to withstand any type of response by the USA. They would be martyring their entire country. I don't even think Cuba would do that. Cuba might let Russia use them as like a stationing base, along with also allowing China to use it as well, but they would not act on their behalf, at least in my opinion.
So, really quickly to also put this out there, Cuba has an active army of 50,000 people. So I'm assuming, based off of that number, No, they would not be able to do anything to the United States and get away with it. We would be able to just pick away their military from the air, and that would be it. We would probably just end up pulling an Operation Just Cause with Cuba and end up overthrowing and replacing the Cuban government and then occupying the island. They would certainly not be the ones that would be able to get some kind of an intermediate range ballistic missile and just start firing them off into the United States. That would not end well for them. Meanwhile, Haiti, which some people are saying in the chat, have y'all seen what's going on in Haiti? I mean, people are being eaten alive right there, right now. I don't think they'd be the ones to have the time to go and fire off missiles at the United States or Canada. So I'm highly doubting Haiti would be a country that the Russians would give weapons to.
Haiti can barely like hold themselves together to simply survive at this point. Like that country is barely hanging on by a thread. Like even with the gangs controlling it, that country is like you can like wipe them off the list like right now.
Yeah, no doubt. Haiti isn't even on the list. Venezuela, however, may be one of the few that you could put on the list, but even then they don't really have an army, they don't have an economy anymore, and so they would not really be in a good position to conduct some kind of a conflict or a war at the moment with the United States or NATO. So North America is completely out of the picture. And they are certainly not going to be providing massive weapon systems, and I'm talking missile launchers, intermediate range ballistic launchers. They're not going to be providing those to the cartel, because how in the world would they get those into Mexico, past the federal police, past the federal army of Mexico, and then to the cartel, and then the cartel just ends up driving around an Iskander launcher through the countryside, and the Mexican government doesn't do anything? That would be highly unlikely.
I mean, that in my opinion is possible. Also, like in Mexico, since the bribery situation there is not under control whatsoever, I'm sure they could probably bribe some weaponry into Mexico. And also, the cartel has a pretty good free reign there as well. The federal police try to get a grip on it, but they really can't. So if all of a sudden there was an Iskander launcher, hypothetically, going through Mexico, I really doubt that anybody would do anything about it because they don't want to get fired on either.
Well, we would probably do something about it, because we would be observing anything that would be going into Mexico at that point if we had any intelligence, and we would probably intercept vessels and impound them and possibly search them to see if they were carrying any kind of weapons like that to the cartel. And if they were, we would use that, Matthew, as an immediate thing to conduct military intervention in Mexico against the cartel. So I'm sure the cartels wouldn't even take up that offer, because they know that if they fired an Iskander into the United States, that's not really good for business. I mean, they are largely a drug trading business. That's what they are. And so if they end up firing at their customers, I don't really think that's good business for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. They don't want to fire on your customers, that's for sure.
Yeah, you don't want to sour the business relations that you have going on in America. You know what I mean? So I don't really think the cartel would accept a Russian weapon. So then we move on to Europe. So what in the world is around Europe that could possibly use a Russian weapon and fire into Europe? Well, none of the North African countries at this moment are particularly anti-European to the point that they would accept a Russian weapon and fire on any NATO members in Europe. There's no one really in the Middle East either who would do that, except for Iran, but Iran is further away from Europe than Russia. And for that reason, being able to launch any kind of missiles from Iran towards the European Union would be highly unlikely, if not impossible. And not only that, that would most likely once again tie into the Middle Eastern situation and give a good excuse for Western nations to conduct military intervention on Iran, invading Iran, taking over the country for a short while, occupying it, and then throwing out the current government and throwing in a new one. So they will probably not be a big fan of that, because that's completely screwing over their interests and not really getting them anything in return. Then everyone else is out of the picture because they're geographically so far away from NATO that they would not count. And some people are going to say the Chinese. And come on, y'all, please. Like, the Russians are begging the Chinese to give them weapons. Why in the world would the Russians give the Chinese weapons to then fire on the West? That wouldn't happen. And Belarus, you can forget that too. I do not think the Belarusians are going to be firing anything towards the West either, because that could put them in a pretty bad situation pretty quickly. Even if they did have tactical nuclear weapons, they wouldn't use those first, and that means that the response from the West would probably be pretty severe, probably incredibly major. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. I feel like the threat's completely empty, but if there was anyone that was within striking range of the Western world, or really NATO as a whole, they probably would supply weapons to them, but there really isn't anyone around at the moment that could do something like that. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, but now it's time for us to move on to the raw juice that was flowing out of a refinery today and catching on fire in the streets of Novoshatinsk. Novoshatinsk is a town which was mentioned a very short while on this channel during the Wagner coup, as this was the first town that the Wagner took control of during the armed rebellion that occurred against the Russian Federation. It was literally the first that fell to Wagner forces, was Novoshatinsk. The next one was Shakhty, just to the east, and then further south, Rostov-on-Don was the next one. And then the Wagner forces began to race northwards and took over a large portion of other cities. But beyond that, this city has a small little oil refinery in it, and I believe if we can look around for it here really quickly, we might be able to find it. Here it is, right here. This is the oil refinery at Shatinsk. It's a smaller one, but it still produces a large amount of refined fuel products that are usually shipped directly on from the refinery and directly to Russian forces in Ukraine. It's very close to the front line, and for that reason, logistically, it's one of the priority refineries that are used to supply the Russian war effort, considering that the supply lines are short and therefore much more efficient. However, it appears that the Ukrainians have put a little bit of a damper on this, as we saw that a little refinery fire broke out, as the Russians ended up having their refinery once again hit by a Ukrainian drone. No air defense was heard of or seen, and the drone was able to successfully hit the refinery and knock it out. Here's the clip.
Товарищи, пиздец полный. У нас нефтик подорвали.
А чё она сверкает-то? Ебать, там бы не ядерная бимба сейчас была. Сейчас прикинь, грибок встает, ебать, я охуею.
And that thing do be cooking.
Seems like it's been a good minute since we've seen a refinery on fire like
А я
this.
еще подумал
I
сначала
would say it's
машине
been like a
грохнули.
good month, maybe. But look at it cook.
Да там бы как бы нефтяное уебали.
Man, that's what Moscow would look like if they actually did provide weapons to someone and they used them against us. That's what Moscow would look like. It would be looking toasty. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see a still picture of the explosion that was caused by the drone on the refinery. And then finally, we got a really close-up look of the refinery fire, which was deleted. So we will not be getting the close-up look, but it was there. Trust me, bro. But we'll be getting rid of that so that way we don't have useless link on the map. But beyond that, the destruction of the refinery is a major ordeal. It's huge because, once again, this is starting to limit the amount of available Russian fuel production that they can have at any given moment in time. And then, not only that, it is also directly affecting the Russian armed forces in Ukraine and making sure that they do not have the ability to supply themselves with usable fuel products as easily as they did in the past. Once again, putting a severe, I guess you could say, wrench in the Russian logistical chain and making sure that life will only be even more difficult for them. It's also something to note that Ukrainian strikes like this have been very limited in the past. We believe that that's because the United States started to lodge complaints that hitting these refineries may be escalating the war into situations that the United States wasn't really a big fan of. But it appears that the Ukrainians are beginning these once again and making sure to knock out these refineries, whether the United States wants them to be knocked out or not, because it gives the Ukrainians a massive advantage in the Ukraine war and making sure that the Russians are put at a severe disadvantage, which is great for them, not great for Russia. But moving on from that little bit of news, we also got a little bit of news down in the area of Odessa of Ukrainian patrol boats that have been moving around the seas. This is a little Ukrainian patrol boat. This thing is near the area of Odessa, and while this is a very unsung part of the war, Ukrainian naval patrols are always being conducted along the shoreline from Odessa to the border of Romania. It's incredibly important for Ukrainian maritime efforts as these small patrol boats patrol in between Snake Island to Odessa, making sure to keep the ship channels clear of any kind of anti-ship mines that may be possibly laid by the Russians, and making sure that the path is clear for domestic shipping and domestic maritime traffic to enter and exit Ukraine from the area of Odessa. It's something that's been ongoing for quite some time now, and these small little patrol vessels, which are really some of the largest ships in the Ukrainian Navy, are the ones who valiantly keep this area of the seas open for business and open for traffic to enter its way into Ukrainian ports. And we can see right here, they're actually... go ahead.
You know, even though that Ukraine really doesn't have a real good navy to speak of, to be honest, it's not really a big navy. They have a competent one, but it's not very large. They mainly rely on their drone boats. When you do see their boats, they look like they're always well kept. Like even this one right here looks like it's probably a little bit older, maybe. I'm not really sure. It looks like it's very well kept and in good condition.
Yeah, they really do keep them up in good shape. And from what I know, most Ukrainian vessels are older, or they were designed off of a Soviet weapon system or weapon systems. So they are fairly old, at least in their technical abilities, but still, they do their job incredibly well. And we can actually see one of the guns on the stern of the vessel firing. I believe this is actually some sort of an anti-aircraft gun. I forgot the name of it, but it's a dual-mounted rotary gun of a sort. They mounted these things on the MiG-27s, but I forgot what exactly these things are. But moving on from that, we can then see some crew members on deck. We can once again see the system, the anti-aircraft gun right behind them. It appears that they're preparing the chains for the anchor, possibly. Walter E. Lakota would know all this. I'm not even going to say what they're doing. Walter E. Lakota will know. But we can once again see the gun on the stern of the vessel, and then we can see a picture of what appears to be a similar gun on the bow of the vessel as well. But once again, nice to see this little patrol vessel, just one of them, that continues to keep the waterways open into Ukrainian ports. And it's crazy to think that this little navy, this tiny navy that Ukraine has, not only has destroyed nearly 40% of the Russian surface vessel fleet and about 20% of the Russian submarine fleet of the Black Sea Fleet, they have also been able to keep these commercial waterways open for really the entire time of the war since last year, which is absolutely crazy, and you got to give them a lot of commendation for that. That takes a lot of skill, a lot of guts, and a lot of courage to go out on small patrol vessels like that, knowing that you really are outgunned in the Black Sea, but nevertheless still taking on the challenge and still making sure that this vital artery for Ukrainian supply efforts remains open and ready to operate. Moving on from that and out of the area of Odessa, we also were able to get a little bit of interesting news in our location unknowns before we move on into the Vovchansk area where big things happen. But moving on into our first bit, we got to see a 79th Brigade T-72EA. The T-72EAs, I believe, are a modified version of the T-72 from the Czech Republic, but it's really nice to see that they were able to get some of these and use them around there. This is, of course, in the training field, so it looks like they're training crews on this tank and getting it ready for frontline service. But whether it's getting ready for frontline service or it's active on the front lines, it's great to know that Western support continues to flow into Ukraine and make sure that these brigades can either replace the numbers that they've lost on the front lines or even raise new units from the ground up. Moving on from that and into our next bit, we also got to see a German-supplied MAN carrying an M1 Abrams that had a massive amount of cope cages and Contact 1 ERA attached to it. We've actually seen this one before, and when we saw the picture of it, it was a part of the 47th Brigade located around the Avdiivka area. At the moment, we don't know where this picture was really taken. That's why it's in the location unknowns, but it appears that the Abrams is being moved. We have heard some interesting discussions, speaking of the Abrams as a whole, about the Abrams being ineffective in Ukraine, and that's something that I have to say is causing a lot of controversy, actually. I've heard apparently some former U.S. commanders, including some folks, Maddie, that watch our show, have publicly been on news channels saying that that is absolute hogwash, what some people are saying about the Abrams, and that the Abrams is probably one of the more competent main battle tanks that has been delivered to Ukrainian forces and used there. Of course, there are logistical issues that have been posed with the Abrams, considering it uses a jet turbine engine. Therefore, the maintenance is a little bit more complicated on it. It still has a wide suite of abilities that it's able to conduct on the battlefield, much like a Leopard 2 or a Challenger 2. It's just that the supply and maintenance of an Abrams is just a little bit different than its other NATO counterparts that have been provided so far. But nevertheless,
it is a super competent tank, though. I will say, like, out of all the tanks that Ukraine's gotten, I would say probably the Leopard and the Abrams are probably the most competent of the two. But the only catch is, I'll see people saying, well, the Abrams isn't that effective. The catch is the drones are going to be a problem for any of the tanks. It doesn't matter how advanced the tank is, the drones are going to be a problem. Unless it has some type of trophy system or active denial system, the drones are always going to be a major problem for any of these vehicles. So, I think I saw some people discounting the tank just because of the drone problem.
Well, every single tank, like you were saying, will have a problem with drones at the moment. Even the Merkava Mark IV, which I would say is probably one of the most advanced and well-protected tanks in the world at the moment, in my opinion, based off of its design, even it has been defeated by Hamas drones, almost like the ones that are being used in Ukraine. The thing with, and I'll show y'all an Abrams here, the thing with an Abrams, and the thing that a lot of people misunderstand about tanks, is that every tank will end up being destroyed in one way or another. Every single tank in the world right now has ended up being destroyed in combat. Whether it be the Leopard 2, the Challenger 2, the T-90 from Russia, the T-72, the Type... Well, actually, none of the Chinese main battle tanks have been destroyed in combat, but that's because they haven't been in a war. And the Japanese main battle tanks haven't... And also the South Korean ones haven't been destroyed in combat either. But once again, none of those countries have been in a war while those tanks have been in service. So, going off of that, every single tank that's ever been in combat has ended up being destroyed. There is a fundamental difference, though, in what happens when they're destroyed from an American tank versus a Soviet one. And this is the point where things become a little bit annoying to hear when some people say, or some Ukrainian sources say, oh, the Abrams isn't that great. The Abrams is great. Not because it will survive, it will not. It's great because it emphasizes crew survivability. Now, this is the big thing to talk about, because this is something that a lot of people do not speak about at all, but this is really just the biggest difference in between the two designs of tanks, the Soviet and Western designs, or Soviet-inspired designs and Western-inspired designs. The T-90M, as you see right here, many of y'all will know that this channel was the one to coin the term the turret toss, like it was a hammer toss. The reason why is because when a Soviet-style main battle tank gets hit, usually the ammunition has a critical detonation, and it sends the turret flying upwards in a massive explosion. The reason why it always does that nearly is because all of the ammunition in this tank is stored in the infantry compartment under their feet in a massive carousel that literally is just at the bottom of the turret inside the tank. I wish I could show y'all this. Let me just type in ammo carousel, because I'm sure that'll, let's see, carousel. And so let me go get this. Let me see if I can show it to y'all. So you know what? This is actually a good way to show it right here. This is the ammo carousel. This is a video game main battle tank. It appears to be a T-72A, but it shows you how the ammunition is laid out inside of a Russian main battle tank, and they're all like this. All Soviet design and post-Soviet main battle tanks of Soviet inspiration all have an ammo layout like this. In fact, this little Reddit informational article here does it a lot better. That's where all of the ammunition is inside the tank. So when the tank gets hit, it blows up. I mean, it kills everyone in the tank instantly, pretty much, for the most part, because the explosion is almost instantaneous. Not only that, but the explosive force is so strong that the tank is completely destroyed, and usually the turret is lifted completely out of its positioning in the hull and sent into space. This is completely different on Western designs, because while Western design tanks can still be knocked out and destroyed in frontline fighting, the major difference, the biggest difference is that an Abrams isn't going to explode like a bomb when it gets hit by an FPV drone. The reason why, and you can actually see it on this infographic right here at the bottom, we have something in the Abrams called a blowout panel. And the blowout panel is a very special thing that is really indigenous only to Western designs. Chinese designs do not have this implemented. Japanese and South Korean tank designs do have this implemented, but they're more so Western-inspired designs of their main battle tanks. But when an Abrams ammunition storage gets hit, it doesn't blow up the tank. All of the explosive force is sent upwards away from the tank and away from the crew, so that way it doesn't kill them when it blows up. This means the tank will be lost, but the crew will not die. And that's a big thing, because if the crew can bail out of the tank and escape the front line, the United States, or really the Army, is having to spend less time training new crews. They also do not have as high attrition or as high casualty rates in the tanker forces as they would have with a Soviet design. And not only that, in some instances, while the tank may have been damaged or knocked out, the tank could be recovered and refurbished back into operational condition without that much effort. Once a Soviet main battle tank gets hit and blows up in a critical ammo detonation, it is practically unrecoverable beyond that point because the damage has been so severe to the tank. The crew compartment has literally evaporated in the heat of the explosion. all the crew members have turned into a nice, good charred paste along the walls of the turret and inside of the hull. And not only that, all of the control systems inside of the turret for the gun and everything else have been burned to burn to shit, really, and then the driver's position is the same. So there's really no way to recover a T-72 from that situation. But when a blowout panel burns, it will burn the turret of the tank, it might end up burning the engine bay, and it may end up burning hot enough that it ends up disabling or knocking out the vehicle. But you could still pull that thing out of the line with a recovery tank, send it all the way back to the United States, specifically to Anniston Army Depot, which is just right near us, and they will be able to refurbish the tank back into operational condition. And that's the big thing about Western tanks, is that they emphasize crew survivability where the crew will live. It's not about the tank surviving, it's about the crew surviving, because the crew is the most important element of the tank.
And also, like, the British even took it a step further and gave him a teapot.
Yeah, they gave him an actual tea kettle in the Challenger 2. But getting back into why in the world all this matters, to say that the Abrams sucks, I don't even know who the hell is saying that, because it's like, sucks to what? Sucks to getting literally evaporated inside of a Soviet-era main battle tank when the ammunition is hit? I mean, what does it suck compared to? Like if yes, the Abrams will get knocked out. I said that before they even made it there. I said, y'all, the Abrams isn't invincible. It will be knocked out in combat. That's just what's going to happen. It's a tank. And then everyone, oh no, and then it gets blown up and everyone is shocked. And that's what was going to happen. It's a tank. That's what they do. When they get hit, they get destroyed.
I think some people are just against the tanks for the reason I said basically a minute ago. They think the tanks are becoming obsolete because they can't effectively defend against the drones, which there's a valid argument for that. But the tanks are still a necessity because there still is a ground war to fight, and mechanized units like the tanks, they're needed still. So, they have to find ways to defend the tanks against the drones. That's the key, not to get rid of the tank, but simply to outfit the tank.
And really, it's really just about implementing active protection systems onto the tank, which is not that far around the corner. I mean, we've already seen the infancy of APS systems for a while now, and they'll probably be implemented across the board. We're already hearing that apparently some Bradleys that were sent to Ukraine have APS systems mounted onto them. I don't know how in the world they did that, but apparently they do. So that ought to be protecting them a lot better from incoming FPV drones and anti-tank fire. But beyond that, the Abrams is far better than anything else Ukraine has. Because when Ukraine says, because it's actually Ukrainian officers, I'll just say this. When Ukrainian officers go, oh, the Abrams isn't really that good of a tank, it's like, so what you're saying is you would like the whole crew to die in an ammunition explosion in a Soviet-era main battle tank is what you're saying. Because what really makes the Abrams worse beyond the crew being able to survive the hit? That's the thing. So I hope that does address that well about the whole Abrams deal. I mean, it really just was inspired by this one picture, but the Abrams is not a bad tank. It will be destroyed. It will be knocked out. Every tank in the world does that. It's not shocking, but the crew will live, and that's the really big shocking part about the thing being destroyed in the first place, is that somehow the crew will end up living, and that's the biggest part about the Abrams. That's the biggest part about every single Western main battle tank. But anyways, with that, it's time for us to move on from this little rabbit hole brought up by a picture of an Abrams on the back of a truck, and it's now time for us to move on into the Russian casualty report, because the losses have been high.
Oh, whoa, my goodness, man. These losses. 12 Bobcats. That's genuinely impressive, I must say. Quite swell. And also 1280 troops. I'm telling you what, that's looking crazy. What was Putin saying a minute ago about Russia would win the war in like 3 months or something like that? He said he would win the war? Did he dare say that?
We'd win it in 2 to 3 months without Western support. It's like, didn't y'all go for 8 months without Western support and y'all still weren't winning? Like, wasn't that something that just happened like not too long ago? But beyond that, 1,280 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours in frontline fighting. 2 entire battalion tactical groups have largely been stricken off of the roster for completely being destroyed, really. 16 armored personnel carriers have also been destroyed, along with 69 supply trucks, 12 main battle tanks, 40 artillery systems, 39 drones, 2 cruise missiles, 3 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and the 12 Bobcat skid steers. All in all, today was an impressively good day for the Ukrainian armed forces, and it's once again showing that they are putting in the work on the front lines as far as the defensive effort goes. The Ukrainians are conducting probably one of the most successful defensives that we have seen, and I would have to say that it is wildly good. However, I will have to say that Putin also came out with a statement today saying that the Ukrainians were losing 50,000 dead a month in the war, and that the numbers were just insane. For every one Russian killed, they kill 5 Ukrainians. Yet somehow they never move forward. Like, that's an enigma. Like, they're killing so many of them that by most means, that would be a decisive victory. That would be better than we did in the Gulf War in some instances. But somehow, they still make absolutely no frontline advances, which is kind of interesting. Also, another interesting thing out of that is that if they are losing 50,000 Ukrainians dead per month, and he says that 5 Ukrainians die for every 1 Russian that's dead, that means that he actually just admitted, while the Ukrainian number's way off, that the Russians are losing about 10,000 dead per month, even by his own words, at a minimum. So that's a little interesting, you know? Like, I don't know if he actually meant to admit that, but 10,000 Russians dead a month? That's pretty freaking high, you know? Like, it's like, that would be about 120,000 dead per year. That means that in reality, they're losing about 300 to 400,000 guys per year, including the wounded, on top of the dead. So it looks as though that he may have got himself a nice little double whammy right there by going, oh, we're really getting the Ukrainians, and then actually saying what the casualty number for the Russians might really be, and then trying to heavily exaggerate that it was worth something, or something along those lines in the end. But moving on from that little bit of news and the location unknowns, it's now time for us to move on into the Vovchansk front and talk about what's been going on out here, because there's been some juice. Unequivocally, absolutely, and there's been some really interesting stuff that's been going on. And before we get into that, I want to make sure that we talk about something that has been on a lot of people's minds about NATO and Russia, because the tensions have been rising in the Western world, especially in between the NATO alliance and the Russian Federation, and really the CSTO, which is their version of NATO, but it's not as cool, and it hardly has any member states. It's really just Belarus and Russia for the most part. But beyond that, do you think NATO would declare a war on Russia if it was fired on by a handful of Russian missiles? Not from Russia, but from other countries somehow, somewhere, that ended up firing on NATO, either in Europe or in North America. Do you think that the United States, or really NATO as a whole, would go to war with Russia over that situation? Some people are saying that only if they were fired by Russia, yes. Some people are saying that war wouldn't be declared for a few minutes, few hours, few days. And then some people said war would be declared regardless of who fired them. And then some people said if it was fired by a terrorist group, then no, the West would do nothing, and we would just most likely go and fight the terrorists instead. But a lot of people have been talking about this. A load of people have. It's a big conversational piece. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? Do people think that NATO would go to war with Russia if Russian missiles were fired into NATO territory, or do they not? And what do you think about it?
So it looks like about 53% of the audience said only if the missiles were fired by Russia into a NATO territory, then yes, NATO would declare war, while 21% said war wouldn't be declared for only a few missiles. It would take a lot more than that. And at 16% said war would be declared regardless of who did it, and at 10% said only if it was fired by an independent terrorist group, then war would not be declared. So obviously on this one there should be more choices to it, but sadly we're only limited to 4 choices. But out of the given choices here, I would say that if the missiles were fired by Russia, NATO would probably try to play it off, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. They should declare war. That's what they should do. But they'd probably try to be like, it's just a handful of missiles that landed in a field or something like that. It's okay. Let's talk diplomacy some more. That's probably what they would try to do. Now, if it was fired by a terrorist group, they would definitely not declare war, because that's not the way NATO works at all. They don't go declare war on the terrorist groups, at least not over there in Europe or in the countries we're talking about. So I would be with the 53%. If it was fired by Russia, then maybe they might declare war, but probably not. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that only if they were fired by the Russian Federation into Western nations, then we would go to war. But in any other instance, we would not. I'm very certain on that, because usually, even with what's been going on in the Middle East, when terrorist forces have ended up attacking Western or Western-aligned forces, we don't really respond much, if at all, from what I could see. So I would assume that it would be almost the same inside of Europe or inside of North America if something like that was to happen. However, if an attack directly happened on the United States itself and ended up causing damage within the United States, or ended up causing any kind of deaths in the United States, I have a feeling that that probably would be enough, regardless of the situation, to invoke a response not against the Russians, but against whoever did that, even if it was a Russian weapon that ended up hitting America. But in the particular scenario that we're talking about right now of the West going to war with Russia in this instance, I would say that it probably would only be if Russia fired those missiles into NATO. And so I hope that I addressed that fairly well in my opinion. And now it's time for us to move on into the Vovchansk area and cover the news that's been going on here today. But before we do, there have been several questions that have been thrown in, and I'm seeing Blue Flame 777 is getting a lot of traction in the live chat right now. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so first up, we have a $30 donation, the largest super chat of the night thus far, from Howard Turgell. And thank you very much, Howard, as always, for that very generous support and helping keep the channel running. And Howard says, an update on France putting boots on the ground in Ukraine. Is that still happening?
It's still happening. They are moving in special forces to train Ukrainian soldiers, and I think that's already happened or it's going to happen. We haven't really heard a lot on it, and the timetable's been a little ambiguous. But we do know that the French forces moving into Ukraine is still on the table. It's just that French forces as a whole have not moved in any kind of a large number at the moment, from what we know. And so going off of that, I would say French forces, at least in a warlike scenario where they're actually fighting on the side of Ukraine, are not in Ukraine at the moment. French special forces are on their way, or they're in Ukraine at the moment. And the French soldiers joining the war in Ukraine, on Ukraine's side and fighting alongside them, is still on the table. It's just that it's not going to be something that we see here in the very near future. It may be several months from now. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, Howard, and thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help this channel to be possible day in and day out. Every single night that we run this thing, folks like you who support this channel help us to make this thing a reality. We run an ad-free, sponsor-free stream. It's one of the few out there on YouTube that does such a thing. And it's only folks like you, Howard, who help us to make this thing a reality and help us to be able to do this as a job and a living, getting to cover news from around the world. And I got to thank you so much for being one of those people tonight who decided that this channel is worthwhile enough and you find it to be appreciated enough that you would support us, so that way we can continue to do what we do every single day, which is covering the news of the war. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address your question the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. And also, by the way, I saw somebody in the live chat, I can't remember who it was. They had mentioned something about the BM-30 Smerch. And I was looking at that vehicle on Google, and I was thinking, why would you want to get a Smerch when you could get merch on officialenforcerstore.com? And we have the t-shirts and also the patches as well. And that was so damn smooth, I have to admit myself. That was so smooth. That was sneaky, if I do say so myself, most humbly, that is. We still have the t-shirts and also the patches is available as well. The patches are going very fast, by the way. Those are almost sold out completely. And also, we did get at least half of the patch orders shipped. Actually, today, they were delivered to the post office this evening. So most of those are out. And also the t-shirts are shipping as well as the orders come in. So just a huge shout out to that. But Enforcer, I know you have something to add as well.
Of course I do. The LSA t-shirts and the LSA patches are still on the store. They are going to be here until tomorrow at the end of that stream, and then these will be over with. We will not be running these on the store again, or probably for a really long time. Probably maybe at least half a year before these things are run another time. They are absolutely sick. I've been able to see the patches in the hundreds in person, and they are truly incredible looking. They are really nice. They are made of a high quality PVC material. The actual design looks just like this in real life. What you see is what you get. It is that nice. It is really good. It's about 4 inches by 2.5 inches. It looks wonderful on a plate carrier, and it's just the best patch I have ever seen. Truly the highest quality. And we did get a lot of them. We got about half of the orders that were put in out today. I was the one who sent them off to the post office, and they should be on their way to all of y'all here in the very near future. Not only that, but the LSA t-shirts are finally making their way to people's doors, because I've seen a lot of y'all in the chat tonight saying that y'all got your t-shirt and it is incredibly nice. And I'm happy to know that y'all got it and that it is incredibly nice. We put in so much effort into making sure that this would be the nicest t-shirt that y'all would ever get. Because we don't want this to just be a quick or like the best way to say it, because a lot of people on YouTube run their merchandising like this. It's like almost like a pump and dump kind of a thing where everyone gets a merch item, but it's a really low quality thing. We want ours to actually be high quality. We want it to be nice enough that y'all would wear this around either in public or be really happy wearing this around at home, and that it would last.
Let me tell you. I want to add this real quick. Don't mean to interrupt, but I want to say that if you held up our shirt or even the patches or the flags or the mugs to anybody else's merch that they sell on YouTube for their channel, I'm not going to say guarantee, but I would pretty much bet that it's going to be higher quality on our store by a long shot, because now that we're running our own store, we've gotten to control the quality ourselves, and every single item that's been put on the store has gotten glowing reviews. You'll never see better quality than what's on the store right here. Like the t-shirts, everybody's saying they're extremely soft, they're very nice in person, and the prints are much higher quality than the previous ones as well. And the patches are insanely cool. Like, y'all haven't got to see those yet, but when you get them, and they should be arriving in just a few days to a lot of people, those are going to be super impressive as well. Very cool to see in person. I think a lot of people are going to be shocked when they get it out and look at it. So very high quality indeed.
And also, the colors of the shirt comes in black, military green, charcoal, navy, light blue, and light pink. So you actually have a decent amount of options and variety, and they come in a multiple amount of sizes, from small to 5XL. So you can find just about any size you would want. It's made using 100% soft cotton. So there's no like nylon in it or anything like that. It's all cotton, and not only that, it is American-grown cotton as well, Western cotton. Better than that Egyptian cotton that's not a part of NATO, the European Union, or any of our trade organizations that we are a part of, or any of that Indian cotton or Chinese cotton. But anyways, beyond that, this is high-quality American cotton, and it is a regular classic style fit, meaning that it is incredibly comfortable. That's the kind of fit I wear. That's the kind of fit I'm wearing right now for a t-shirt. And so make sure to get some while you can. This limited edition run will be going until tomorrow. At the end of that stream, that's when this limited edition run will end. So we are, of course, wanting to tell all y'all about this. Because some people may hear it today. Some people may have not heard it up until today. And so I want to make sure that y'all heard it and know about what's going on here. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much once again for support, Howard. I hope that does address that the best we can. And I hope that also was the smoothest plug that we've ever seen, moving straight from smirch to merch, which rhymes. Yeah! And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, in our next super chat, this one is actually going to BC Skyman, who threw a very generous $100 donation. That is the biggest one of the night thus far, actually, just supplanted the last one, and a huge shout out to BC Skyman for that very generous support. He said, good evening to the Enforcers and the LSA family, and thank you to everyone that has sent the bandages, and you're an amazing group of people helping save lives in Ukraine, and we will have picture and video evidence, just like the channel likes, of the LSA flag presentation, and I can't wait to see it.
And I thank you so much, BC Skyman. And also, by the way, I should be able, are they sending them forward right now, Matthew?
Oh, sending forward the patches?
Yes.
Wait a minute, I meant to say the bandages, not the patches.
Are they sending them forward, though?
Yes, they'll be sending them forward soon.
Is there still time for mine to get there?
I'm not honestly, I'm not sure. You'll have to ask BC. Ask him in the chat right now.
I hope there is, BC Scamming, because I got loads of them that are going to be on the way here really soon. So hopefully it's not happening incredibly soon, because I have a load of them that I was planning on giving, and also we were planning on sending a load of patches with that as well, so that way all of those could get over to Ukraine along with the packages. So that way, while we can't sell to international viewers, it would be nice to see LSA patches popping up here and there on the front lines in Ukraine. And so I hope that we are able to still get the patches out there. And so let's see. It looks like BC Scamming is saying yes. Hopefully not to them being sent soon. Hopefully there's still time, because I was supposed to be sending loads of them. But still, let's see. End of June, so we got till the end of June to get them to him, so we should be able to do that. But nevertheless, thank you so much for the massive support to this channel, BC Skyman, and I got to thank everyone else on your behalf for helping out BC Scammon on getting those Leukomed T plus bandages, because so many of y'all, from what I understand, were able to get the bandages to him. He's got hundreds of them at the moment, and hopefully we will be able to see not only the packages, the bandages get there, but also the LSA flag that is going with it, and hopefully some LSA flag patches as well, so that way we can get the whole Lee Spring Army thing going over in Ukraine for a lucky unit that will receive all this stuff. Not only that, but BC Scammon, I gotta thank you for being an old guard on this channel, because I remember the first time that you went on a trip to Ukraine, and you sent us all the pictures, and we got to see everything that went on over there. That was incredibly cool, and it's crazy to think that you've been here really since day 4. You've been here since the war was literally a baby in infancy. The Battle of Hostomel had just been won and then lost right afterwards, as the Russian main advance made it to the airfield and then retook it by the time you were watching this show. And that is absolutely insane to think that you've been here for this long, because you have been here for 829 days exactly as of today, BC Skyman. And I got to say that that's absolutely wonderful to know that you've been here with us the whole time. You've been sticking the course, and hopefully we will be able to make sure to get all of those bandages over to Ukraine and help out in one of the best ways that the Lee Spring Army does, which is through direct support that actually makes a difference, either on the Sunday night fundraisers or in this instance by actually sending physical bandages over to Ukraine. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and thank you, BC Skymer, for being an old guard of this channel, and certainly leading the Lee Spring Army by an exemplary example. And so with that, thank you once again, and thank you for the massive support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, I see folks asking once again about the international shipping for the patches. The current tentative plan that I have, and this is all contingent on the actual amount of patches we have left, is we might be able to do a 3-pack of the patches to justify the increased shipping costs. So it'd be a total of about $30 for the 3 patches, and then the shipping is going to still be probably what it was. I was waiting and holding out to see if Shopify were going to give us a discounted rate for international shipping, but they have not responded as of yet, and it's been about a week, so I'm not sure if that's going to work out. But we will offer that. It's still, the shipping's still going to be like $16, which is still insane, but the option will be there. If I had a way to get it cheaper, I would obviously go that route, but at this point, I'm at a loss. I've looked at pirate ship, I've done all the alternatives, and I can't find a better solution than that. So if anyone has any ideas, feel free to email them to me at the store support email, but I think that might be our best bet yet.
And so with that, I hope we address the merchandising situation fairly well for all of our international viewers who would want a patch. But I gotta say, y'all, like, and some people are gonna be like, what, 3 patches? Like, that's ridiculous. I'm sorry, y'all, that's really the best we can do. Shipping internationally is just ridiculous in and of itself, and so we have to try and find a way to make it at least reasonable to pay for insane shipping costs. So we would rather sell them in groups of 3, so that way at least y'all are getting a bang for the shipping buck. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, I think we're on to the last question of the segment, Matthew, and then we're going to be moving on into the Vovchans front.
And yes, the last super chat of this segment is a very generous $50 donation, this time from Darren Quinn. And thank you very much, Darren, for that very generous support from Australia, of all places. The place that'll get jacked at the most with international shipping. Quokkas?
Do you know that song?
I don't.
Oh, it's like a song about Australia, but go ahead, Matthew, go ahead.
I thought you were talking about Quokkas or something. But anyways, our next one, this one is Darren Quinn, who says, looking forward to my Army Green tees, and I bought 2, and I need a Putin tree in ground day when Putin finally goes out his merry way of a 4-story building. He said, from the Surf Coast, West South Australia.
Hey, in Southwest Australia, you're from Perth. You're from Perth, eh? That must be where you're from. Or you're from south of Perth at Bunbury or Bustleton, where it's bussin'. But beyond that, I gotta thank you so much for the support. And I'm glad to hear that you got 2 military green LSA tees. I was thinking this, y'all. Like, hear me out with this. I was thinking that this would be kind of neat. Okay, so let me go back to the store and let me show y'all that tee. So order tee. Let me go here. Let me go to the military green one. So this military green color is that kind of green color that I have seen used for t-shirts that are issued as a part of, I believe, BDUs in the Army. And so I was sitting there and I was like, wouldn't that be kind of cool if, I don't know, some people got this shirt in the U.S. military and ended up violating the Army regulations for dress code and then put this shirt on instead of their normal shirt for their BDU. I was just thinking, wouldn't that be kind of cool? I thought it might be a little cool. I don't know if anyone would do that, and I don't think anyone would want to do that and then take a picture of it, because then there'd be proof of the violation of the, let's see, what is it, Matthew, for the Army? It's like Army Regulation 670-1 or something like that. But beyond
Political
that,
neutrality. You can't speak about politics if you're in the military.
hey, we're a non-political channel, Matthew. I mean, they could wear the shirt.
That's true. That's true.
That's true. I mean, dude, we are absolutely like the military, divorced from politics entirely. This is a
Divorced.
Oh, divorced from politics, man. We have no
Yeah.
dealings with it. I mean, and politics ain't getting none of that child support. Like, we ain't giving it a damn dime.
Oh, damn. Whoa.
But
Wait a minute,
beyond,
divorce means that at one point you were married to the politics. That means you got rid of it because you had a falling out.
no, I wouldn't say it like that. We broke up with politics. Well, we didn't even break up. We never even knew politics. I never even knew politics, and that child ain't mine. But beyond that,
I never had sexual relations with those politics.
man, no, I never had sexual relations with that woman. He did have sexual relations with that one. It's just like the narrator just pops in right after he says that. He did have, like Morgan Freeman. He did have sexual relations with that woman. And then it just skips forward in time. But anyways, moving on from that, that would be cool. I think that would be pretty neat. But beyond that, I thank you so much for the support and getting 2 of those. I cannot wait for you to get them. And I hope they look great. And I hope that you enjoy wearing them around, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be asking, hey, what's that? You can be like, why, that's the Lee Spring Army. It's a pro-Western organization looking to help secure the freedoms and liberties of the Western world by making sure to keep people aware of what's going on by foreign rivals around the world, and making sure that people are up to date with what they're doing and what we are doing in response. That would be wonderful. Absolutely incredible. And I got to thank you so much once again for support and enjoying this channel so much that not only will you get the teas, but you'd super chat the channel as well, which we're greatly appreciative and thankful for. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And also, Matthew, can you reread that and make sure I didn't miss anything?
Yes. Let's see. This one was from Darren Quinn, who said, I'm looking forward to my army green tees. I bought 2. And it need a Putin tree in the ground day when Putin finally goes out his merry way.
You know what? Yeah. Like, I would like to see that. Like, a Putin tree is what he said. Like, I'm hearing that right?
A Putin tree.
I don't know what a Putin tree is, but one day we will find out. Maybe when we take a trip to Australia someday, which would be kind of cool, but I don't know when that would be. It'd probably be like 20 years. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are now moving out of the question segment and back into the news, where we got to see Russian sergeants have been complaining of the frontline situation, and it's apparently pretty bad. Northern... Huh.
Whoa.
Well, I guess it's
Surely that's a mistranslation, hopefully.
I guess it's that bad up there. I guess it's really that bad. Regarding the defeat of the units of the Motorized Rifle Regiment 1009, I cannot yet disclose details. But believe me, we will return again to the mistakes of the command, which did not take into account the changed realities of recent days. For now, what remains of the 1009th will be replaced by 2 battalions from the 30th Regiment and 72 divisions of the 44th Army Corps. And that's interesting, because if y'all don't know, the 72nd was actually the Russian unit that was involved in the offensive at Volodar and ended up taking astronomical losses and did not even gain any ground. Fortunately, we didn't have any major failures, but we lost people and equipment. I think the fighters who will replace the Penza fighters will cope with the task. In general, the last few days have become difficult. Don't read the winning reports, and yes, for optimism, we also put a video on the successful work of our guys, but this is only a small drop of everything that is happening here. There is a hard struggle for the Forester's Hut, and those advances of 300 meters in the morning may end in a retreat of 500 meters in the evening. 2 houses on the same street may find themselves under the control of one or the other, and as a result, they simply disappear. And this happening is very killing, not only physically, but also mentally. It's hard to be a commander. I don't mean those with large shoulder straps, but at the levels of platoon, companies, and battalions. Well, that's pretty damn large shoulder straps to be in charge of a battalion. That's multiple companies that someone will be... Anyways, in the 9th Motorized Rifle Regiment of the 18th Division, the guys at the front faltered. They simply refused to carry out their orders. This won't end well for them, but it also won't end well for their commanders either. And so it sounds as though things are going very badly in the northern front line. Moving on from that and on into our next little clip, we did get to see one of the T-80s that tried to move into this northern line today got roasted while heavy metal played in the background. We can see the drone flying on in, right into the back of this T-80.
I tell you what, I don't know what's going on in the YouTube studio, but I keep having to refresh it every 5 seconds.
I know, right? I'm having to do that too because it just like slows down to a complete stop nearly.
Also, BC Skyman, I have not forgotten about you. I'm just trying to get the YouTube studio to work so that way I can pin the message.
And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that area of the front and on into our next one, where we also got to see that a Russian tried to hide, but he failed. Here's the clip. This was captured by the Korn Group. And we can see right here that the Russians...
This is the Freak on the Leash group, I think.
You know that one? Like, it was this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that
It's
one.
a Korn Group.
And so we can see that his attempt to hide failed. Ooh, a little unfortunate for him, but fortunate for Ukraine. It's like watching a wildlife documentary and you're watching it from the perspective of the alligator eating the donkey. Sad documentary if the documentary was about a donkey. But we're with the alligator, so it's a good documentary. But with that, that's the end of that clip right there. Very nice to see. And moving on from that and into the next clip, we also got to see that some Ukrainian forces captured some Russian troops today. Looks like their morale might be poor. Dun, 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 dun. And so we can see them getting ready to capture some prisoners. Looks like one of them was already sleeping on the ground. And we can now see that they've captured them. And look at that. That's how badly the Vovchansk front is going. Guys are kind of just giving up. And we see them interrogating the prisoner.
Also, I see Steven Gerrard made a good point in the live chat. He said, do you guys plan to have something in remembrance of the 80th anniversary of D-Day tomorrow? I don't think we've actually considered that, have we?
We haven't. I was planning on making a mention about it tomorrow, but we don't have anything special, like extremely special planned, because, you know, war goes on as usual, but we will mention it tomorrow, that's for sure. But moving on from that into the area around Platonivka, we also got to see that HIMARS was able to hit a Russian dugout. What a nice little intro. Oh, well, that the Russian FOV right there. Look at this, Matthew. This is what the Russians see when they enter Ukraine. Igor! Oh, believe it.
A Mavic in the face.
I mean, you see the Russian dug in position right there. We see some special Russian equipment operating around the area. And the Ukrainians are about to make it really special. And there we go. The Ukrainians just made this little day really special for the Russians. And that's the end of that clip. But things did not go well as the Russians were attempting to dig defenses behind the lines near Platonivka. One thing that's kind of interesting about that is that now that they're digging defenses, it's very clear that they're planning that they will end up losing ground from the Ukrainian counterattack coming up soon. So we do understand the Russians are in very bad shape, and they're probably going to be getting worse off in this area as time keeps going by. But moving on from that and into our next clip around the area of northeastern Ukraine, we also got to see that the 109th Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces was also able to destroy some Russian logistics. we're going to be muting that. But we can see the drone flying around a burning vehicle of an unknown type. But now we can see them chasing down a known type of vehicle, the supply truck. Ooh, right into the cab. Oh, and then they got the loaf. Oh! We now see it boiling in the daylight. We can now see them continuing to hit Russian logistics. It's relentless out here. The Russians just don't get a break. And they found a Mista. Oh, God! While that Mista might be missing, the Ukrainians ain't missing. Any second now. Oh! Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, that's just the crosshair right there. Sorry. Oh, and here comes the FPV. And, oh, we'll say one might have hit, but there's a second one coming in now. Oh. Oh. Wait a minute. Oh, dead on the nail.
I just realized I was talking to myself for a solid 30 seconds.
Man, I was wondering where you were. I was like, man, it's quiet out here on the
Man, I was over here yelling. I was going, ooh, oh. And I was like, why is he talking over me? I was like, well, he did it twice. I was like, what the hell's going on? And I looked down. I was like muted the whole time.
Man, it's a tragedy like that sometimes. You know what I mean? But it's not as much a tragedy as this Russian right here. Oh, блядь, ты сука, блядь, пиздюки ты нахуй, блядь. Dude, he's like that one Russian guy behind the anti-tank guy, that missile launcher guy. He's like, Ахуел, ты суки, блядь, you know, like as he's running away.
Yes, блядь.
Yes, I thought you were muted again. I was like, man, I'm talking to nobody. But anyways, the FPV drone hit the back of that truck, and another knockout, блядь. And so with it, that is the end of clip, блядь. Very nice to see. And moving on from that, and further down the line, and into the area of Bakhmut, we got to see that the Ukrainians were cooking Russian tanks. They were cooking better than the Chinese PSYOP. Flinging it in. Boop. Wow, right down the hatch. Here it comes. We're getting to see it from the third person. There goes the drone. It's lining up into the hatch. Straight in. Ba-boom, baby.
Oh.
Critical ammo detonation. It's a cook-off.
Firing it up like they cook like on a Chinese wok.
Man, I'm telling you what, man, that's firing up right there, just like Xi Jinping when he sees a picture of Winnie the Pooh. But moving on from that and on into our next clip, we also got to see a little bit further along the way and in the area of Chasiv Yar, the 41st Mechanized Brigade, chilling and grilling in the area of Chasiv Yar. Look at these pics. They are having a time. And moving on from that and on into our next bit, a little bit behind the lines, we also got to see some Ukrainian air defense in operation as well. It's a Strela. Strela! Strela! And there goes the Strela right there. Pew. Bop. And it got its target. Dead on the nail. You can't top it. You just can't beat this. Super cam. Super wow. And we can now see the Strela again looking into the skies and now firing. And is it getting another one? Is this DJ Khaled? Another one.
Real life.
Man, you know, honestly, I like the shibbity dop, shibbity wop, shibbity doop guy more than DJ Khaled. I'm not gonna lie. You know who I'm talking about?
I think so.
You know, it's like that fat guy with a big gut. You know, he sits there and he like does
Oh,
that
oh
goofy
no, I don't like that
dance.
guy at all. Because he kind of supports Putin. I saw those goofy memes and stuff like that, and then one day I saw like in the comments it says something about Putin in it. And I was like, oh,
What?
whoa.
No way! I thought it was
Yeah.
just some fat goober.
Well, no, I think the guy's Turkish. So he's in Turkey. So it's kind of like, you know, they flip flop between liking Ukraine and also liking Russia. And from what I saw one day, the guy had sort of like aligned himself sort of like with the Russians. That's what I saw, at least. I might be wrong, but that's what I saw.
Man, I guess there ain't gonna be no shibbity dop, shibbity wop, shibbity doop thing going on, man. I guess that's
They
stopping
need to
right
quit
here.
shoveling that meat on the plate too. It's like, come on, that's like they're shoveling meat onto a plate.
Dude, like you can shovel all kinds of stuff. You can shovel shit, but shoveling meat, that's too far. but moving on
No,
from that.
no.
And into the next clip, we also got to see that a supply truck was destroyed by the 93rd Brigade in the southern flank today as well. There it is. And here it goes. That ain't no supply truck. That's a main battle tank. That's a turtle. Oh! Oh my heavens! Well, that didn't help him, did it? Like being a turtle. That didn't help.
Someone was talking about skibbity toilet. I'm not sure what that is.
Man, they out here
Skibbity.
like skibbity toilet or something like that. I know what he's talking about. Yeah, I'm glad you don't know because it's just brain rot, to be honest. It's really goofy. But moving on from Bakhmut and down onto the area of Avdiivka, we also get to see that battle activity continued in this direction today as well. And let me get y'all a quick frontline update. Here are the Russians. Here is day the 5th of July. This is what has happened over the past 24 hours. It does appear that the Russians have been able to maneuver considerably around Arkhangelsk and Novoalexandriivka. Arkhangelsk is not a part of the defensive line. Novoalexandriivka is, and it appears that they're having far less progress in that direction, but they are starting to fill in areas that probably had no Ukrainian control in them for quite some time at this point. Beyond that, it doesn't really appear that there's been any other major frontline advances. They are still trying to somehow battle their way onto the first defensive line. They haven't really made it there yet, and I'm not really sure if they will. But moving on from that and on into our clips, we did get to see the 47th Brigade's artillery today. Going to be muting that, but look at those shells.
Ah, yes, I see they know their armaments well.
Good one. And you, sir.
Notice the technique here. Notice the loading technique here.
And you, sir, are you ready to receive my limp rocket? Something like that.
Oh, whoa.
Oh, whoa, ew.
Get your hands off my rocket! That kind of sounds worse, actually.
Ew, yuck. And
Oh.
there goes the grad. And we see them traveling on their way. A little journey. There goes the grad. They're taking so many cinematic clips of this thing. So many edits. Here they go. They're moving into the pre-prepared firing position. They're getting the old girl ready. Send it, baby! Send it! Oh, I'm sorry. It's a little early.
You know, these soldiers actually could say this is Democracy Manifest.
This is Democracy Manifest. Look at the headlock. Notice the head. Get your hands off my weenus. This is a man who touched me by the weenus here, people. Whoa! Man,
And all of it was made up.
And all of it was made up. He was just saying stuff to say it. But we can see the impacts of the rockets downrange here on this drone footage. And that's the end of that clip. But really nice to see the 47th Brigade doing their thing and giving us a nice artillery show. A succulent Chinese fireworks show. But moving on from that, we also got to see that Russian forces were getting hit in the area. Observe. Music. tanks traveling through a field, a massive cope cage, followed by an MTLB with an equally large one. We can now see them getting hit. Oh, and it's starting to toast up. Dang, that thing might be on fire. That thing might be toasted.
What is the charge, good sir? What is the charge?
What are the charges? Failing a push? Failing a Russian push? How dare you, sir? Put your hands on it. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we're going to be stuck on that all night. We also got to see the Ukrainians destroying an abandoned Russian tank, which this clip is a duplicate, so we're going to be getting rid of it. And moving on down into the area of Krasnoyarivka, where we got to see the Ukrainian defense of the town today. Some heavy explosions out there.
Ебать, это наш или не наш перед нами стоит? Живый.
Also, I got a warning. There's a bad thing in the clip.
A bad thing? Can't be too bad. I mean, you know, can't be nothing too bad. We'll see.
Почему, блядь?
Hey, my man's got the AK-12 right here. He's got the whole net.
Два весь нахуй!
You see a little firefight going on here.
Заряжать мне нахуй! У меня
Now see him
What did he just
reloading.
toss behind him?
Huh?
What did he just toss behind him? A grenade or something?
No, a magazine.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was saying, like, toss a grenade.
No, it was a magazine. He ran out of ammo. He's reloading right now. Oh, dang. Butchie 777 said, is this Hot Dog Man's apartment? Yeah, it could be.
Андрюха, ищи пулемет нахуй! Андрюха, пулемет нахуй! А, блядь! Давай живо нахуй! Сзади, пидорас, нахуй! Готов! У нас на проходе, на 4 этаже. Стоит. Раз нахуй. Ебало завалит.
I heard somebody screaming out there. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I think someone's not having a great time out there. Man, this is the most realistic airsoft event I've ever seen.
Давай быстрее, сука.
I'm just kidding, by the way, of course.
Пулемет нахуй. Козёл 200.
Yeah, see him moving from that room.
Где пулемет?
And on upstairs.
Бегом пускай. Я за пулемет. Серега, возьми коробы со мной. И автомат возьми. Долбоёбы, блядь.
Well, you see that he's now grabbed a machine gun. Apparently he's got plans of laying down a larger amount of heat. Oh, he flipped out the bipod. He means business. Oh, and he's flipping up the sight and everything to adjust
Оттуда
it.
было лучше. Угол маленький, обгоришь. Давай.
Explosion
Ах,
outside, kind of
пидорас, по мне
close.
нахуй.
Now see him moving away from the window.
Меняю так нахуй. Смотрите, да. Перед ебалом что-то упало. Ага. Давай, я выше пошел. Там дитя повалили, сука, не? В дырку там хуяли. А? Я уже захуяли там пидоров. Где? В дырку там хуя. Танки? Танку там. Да я же напиздовался тоже, блядь.
Now see him moving around, trying to find another good spot. Explosion close nearby.
Давай, на третьем хожу, да и все, блядь. Вот дырку, блядь. Что, в жопу запиздовать таечку? Слушай!
Now see him sitting here for a moment.
Давай!
You hear another explosion close outside. And now he sees laying down the machine gun.
Ты пидор, сука, стой на месте, нахуй. Попал. Ну, чуть выше въебал ты.
You can hear what sounds like a cluster round exploding outside. Now see the machine gun stuck on a part of the window.
Блядь. Полундра, нахуй. Такой пидор с десантом шел, видишь?
Now see the firefight has stopped for a bit.
А, он на ТМ-ке уебался, походу, слышишь? На ТМ-ке, походу, уебался, долбоёб. Там вот ТМ-ки валяются еще, понял? Залупа галимая, нахуй. А? Ебать в жопу, нахуй, закидывай. Закидывай в жопу. Прям в ход, нахуй. Чтоб наверняка уже, если подгорит, так загорится, нахуй, будет заебись. БК ебаши будет. Дискотека, нахуй. Шляпа ебаная, нахуй, чуешь, блядь? Гусина, сука, конченая.
The bots coming in, they're like, "How dare you laugh?" And then these guys are laughing. It's like, oh well, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do about that. But
Не, на аккуратно, окно спаленное, нахуй. Меня уже сюда упадет, заебало сюда. Тут дать пидоров, нахуй, а? Кушаем.
oh, you're another explosion close nearby.
Ебашить быка, нахуй. Запалю, блядь. Красава, нахуй, ходи. Сая.
And the clip ends. I didn't see anything spicy in that whole clip, but nice to see the 153rd TDF defending Krasnoyarivka. Moving on from that, we also got to see that a Tor missile system, a Tor SAM, was destroyed just south, kind of as a part of the same defensive operation, really the defensive perimeter. But while we were looking at this, Putin did say earlier that if the U.S. stopped transferring weapons to Ukraine, Russia would win the war in maybe 2 to 3 months or so. And a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts on that. And it's something that a lot of people would have thoughts on. It's one of those questions that plagues us, that we have to ask, that we must know the answers to. would it really end Ukraine if the United States stopped transferring weapons? Some people are saying that that's wrong. It's false. The Ukraine gets support from the EU. Some people are saying that that Ukraine relies on American aid. Some people are saying that it would weaken Ukraine. Everyone's saying everything in between. And what are they saying, Matthew? And what are you thinking?
So it looks like 37% believes that that's false. Putin would not win the war in 3 months if the U.S. stopped transferring weapons because Ukraine gets aid from the EU. While 27% said that is true, the war would end in 3 months because Ukraine relies completely on U.S. aid. And 30% said it would cause a weakening in Ukraine, but it would not bring an end to the war. And on this one, I would say that that is false. The war would not end in 3 months because, of course, the EU gives aid as well. The USA is not the only source of weaponry. And while the USA is the biggest donor of them all, that would not bring the war to an end because Putin is also struggling himself. He doesn't know where to get stuff from either. So, they're both on a pretty level playing field here. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I would actually have to say I believe that Ukraine does rely on U.S. aid a good bit. I don't think it would end the war in 2 to 3 months, though. If they didn't get American aid again, it would take quite a while. Like last time we saw, they didn't get U.S. aid for, I think, 7 to 8 months, and they ended up largely being fine. They're still holding the front lines, and nothing really bad has happened. So, in my opinion, I would say that they do rely on American aid, but the Europeans will make sure to keep Ukraine kind of in a state of stasis. U.S. support just makes sure to tip the scale in Ukraine's favor. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, funnily enough, it's actually time for us to move on into the air defense report up in Kyiv, where we got to see that they did quite well. 22 Shahed 136s were shot down overnight, which is really good to see and wonderful to know that they were able to get such a successful air defense report. But without further ado, it's now time for us to move on up into Kyiv itself, the capital of Kyiv, and move on to what appears to be no speech from Zelensky. But I know they're lying. I know he put out a speech. They just not wanting to show it here on the website. Whoever's in charge of their website needs to start getting on it, because I'm sure that I'm about to pull up their YouTube channel and it'll be there. And if it is, I'm going to be disappointed. And it is. And I'm disappointed. So, let me go grab the video. So, let's see here. So, let me make sure that... Okay, is this Zelensky? Okay. So, Zelensky actually did not make a speech. It appears to have been his wife, Olena Zelensky, who made a 52-minute-long documentary today. So, sadly, there actually is no speech. There isn't a single speech. There isn't a single peach. Not a single one. There's just none of it. And so, with that, that is the end of the news segment. And that is moving us on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to all of y'all. It's incredibly fun. It's a wonderful time. I just have to say that tonight, I feel like I got a pretty bad headache. It's not really feeling, I have a bad headache. So that's why I've been kind of a little bit more demure, not really that excited now. Hopefully it hasn't really translated too much, but it's actually a pretty rough headache. But beyond that, we are going to make
see, I got the jump on you because I actually had a headache before the stream came on. But I went upstairs and found some of that good old medication. And I'm doing so swell because I took that medication. And also, I don't know if you're supposed to drink coffee with that or not. I'm talking about Advil, by the way. But that actually did not do that bad. I didn't know if you're supposed to drink it, but I'm like, I got to wake up. But at the same time, I got to stop the headache. So it actually turned out okay. I didn't get a heart attack, so I guess I'm good.
Hey, it works after all. Like, it's all good. But beyond that, I got a little bit of a headache. But that's fine. It's still incredibly fun to get to talk to all of y'all, so we're going to make sure to address all of the super chats and then address as many live chats as we can. Headache permitting, of course. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, and we do not have another poll that's been run. However, I did have one queued up. I just didn't have the chance to run it, and I'm going to go ahead and address it. The question was going to be, Ukraine attacked another major Russian oil refinery today, the one we saw in the, I believe it was the Rostov region. Yes, it was in the Rostov region, and the question is Ukraine slowing the pace of these attacks? And in my opinion, I would say that it seems like Ukraine took a small hiatus from attacking the refineries. I don't think it's been a full month since the last one's been attacked, but it's been a few weeks or a couple of weeks. And it seems like now they're returning to attacking them once again. I would suspect that they probably did that because of U.S. pressures to stop attacking those facilities, because the U.S. has told Ukraine that could negatively impact the global oil market. Obviously, that puts the U.S. interest above Ukraine's quite a bit, because it definitely helps Ukraine to knock those out, because it can hurt the Russian economy. But the U.S. was more concerned with the economics. So it looks like Ukraine has put that to the wind once again, and they're back to it. And I'm glad to see it, because Ukraine needs to keep that up very rapidly. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say, in my personal opinion, that I would have to believe that it is going to be a pretty big deal, like every oil refinery has been. It's not a big deal in the immediate sense. It's going to be a big deal after a while, and that's what's most important. So I say it will have an impact. It will have an effect, and it's good to know that the Ukrainians have gotten back to hitting these kinds of oil refineries. Like Matthew was saying, we do believe that it was largely U.S. Diplomatic pressure that stopped the Ukrainians from hitting them for a while, but it is Ukraine's imperative to hit them and destroy them wherever they can, and so for that reason, they should continue to hit them and destroy them. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping back into our super chat questions, we have one from Ari Soini, who put in a $30 donation. And a huge shout out to Ari Soini for that $30 Australian support and saying LSA. And Enforcer, what say you?
And LSA, Ari Sweeney, Kiwi wife, and Finn. I gotta say, it is absolutely wonderful to know that you, Kiwi wife, and the Finn, both of y'all, really, the unit that y'all are, Ari Sweeney, are able to be here every night enjoying this and really loving the channel, and not only that, loving the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army is absolutely an incredible organization made up of amazing folks like you, Ari Sweeney, and Kiwi Wife and Finn. Well, really Kiwi Wife and Finn as a whole. I just say Ari Sweeney, and then I say Ari Sweeney, the group, pretty much. But beyond that, I'm so appreciative to both of y'all being here pretty much day in and day out. And I thank y'all both for enjoying this channel and being a part of the Lee Spring Army, constantly supporting Western goals and Western interests around the globe. By the way, y'all, I just wanted to put this out there. You know, just share this with y'all. The Lee Spring Army is moving into greater theaters, I guess you could say. Instead of just covering Ukraine, considering that this channel is a world news channel and largely a news channel that is pro-Western, so, you know, we want to make sure to show why we do things in the Western world the way we do. It's for Western interests. We are going to be moving on into East Asia a lot more in the future. We're kind of gearing up at the moment, and what I mean by gearing up is that generally I'm reading a lot. Now, Matthew isn't really reading much because he's the one who kind of runs the actual channel side of things with the merchandising and everything.
What you mean? I read all the time. I just read different materials than you.
Well, yeah, that's true, but I'm the one reading on East Asia right now, and I'm spending an endless amount of time every day. Actually, before the stream, just for a little bit, I actually read a little bit more on Chinese tactics, and I've got to say, y'all, it is a very interesting thing. I cannot wait to be able to tell you all about this in a video. It is wildly interesting. It is very in-depth and really detailed, Chinese battle tactics, or really more so Chinese stratagems and really doctrinal thinking. It's an incredibly interesting thing. It's very different than what we're used to here in the West. And not only that, we are going to directly tie it into Taiwan as well. And we may extend that into multiple video series talking about China domestically, China internationally, as far as its foreign policy is concerned, how we end up interacting with China, and what that means for the world at large. And then we're also going to expand on into other things that have been going on in the area of East Asia. We'll be covering the situation in between the Koreas and the rising tensions there. We'll also be talking about Japanese-Chinese relations, which actually are not that great either. It's just that it's heavily underplayed in the region. We'll also be talking about MILF and the Philippines and what's been going on down there with the MILF and the Philippines, because that's a very interesting one in its own self that we have not really been able to talk about, and it's really just a butt of jokes in this channel whenever we get to bring it up, but it's actually a really interesting thing worth talking about. We'll also talk about China in the South China Sea and what they're doing with the Paracel and Spratly Islands, or what they're wanting to do with them. We'll also talk about what's going on in Burma, or as it's called in the modern day, Myanmar, and talk about the ongoing civil war that's actually broken out there and keeps on going. And not only that, we'll also talk about Indian-Chinese relations. We're going to be talking about everything that happens in Eastern Asia and also the Indian subcontinent for the most part, because it is a wildly wildly interesting world over here. We talk about Europe a lot, but there's an equally large amount of things that is equally important that happens in the area of East Asia. And then from there, we may even expand on into other things, really just the rest of the world, because that's really all we would have left. It's because the big goings on are either Asia, Europe, and North America. South America and Africa are largely non-existent as far as their international importance. Regional importance, sure, but national importance, they very rarely hit the radar. And then Australia and New Zealand are a part of the East Asian sphere for the most part, so they just kind of fall into that category. But beyond that, I cannot wait to get into it because it is incredibly interesting, Ari Sweeney, and that will make sure to really solidify the Lee Spring Army, not just as a pro-Ukraine channel, which is kind of what it has been for a little bit, but a pro-Western channel, because that's what it is at the end of the day. It's not really just pro-Ukraine, it's really supporting Western interests wherever they exist around the globe, and also trying to explain why that's our interests and why we are involved in that in the first place. But still, with that, I thank you so much once again, both of y'all, Kiwi Wife and Finn, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like y'all who help this thing to be possible and help us to dream big. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat here. Also, by the way, let me make sure I got one of them from the live chat. I think I might have missed. Let's see here. Oh, yes, I did grab it. But our next little super chat, not a live chat, this one's going to go to Trademarks and Patents by Thrash Law. And he makes a return. It has been a minute since he started his super chat and also been in the chat. So it's good to see once again Trademarks and Patents, the old-time channel legend. He threw in a $100 donation.
Dang!
Massive support, and thank you very much for that. He said, early in the war, you listed Russian losses and their known inventories, and in the future, could you update those statistics? And bonus points, also cover Russian replacement rates of artillery, tank, MLRS, and APV production, and roll those into an estimated available inventory.
And Trademarks and Patents, you were asking for something I wish we had a great picture on. The problem is that why we stopped doing that is because clearly Russia does have a war industry at this point that we are not able to account for all too well. They're keeping information on it heavily under wraps, and we don't really know what their production and replacement abilities really are at the moment, which is kind of the hard part about this whole deal, because we have seen that over the course of the war, AK-12s have taken the place of AK-74s. I very rarely ever see AK-74s being used by the Russians. It's almost entirely AK-12s now, which is showing us that they are able to continue to produce those small arms, and they are apparently ramping up production and introducing them in larger numbers. Not only that, but we do know that they're also able to modify and refit T-90Ms, because the number of destroyed T-90Ms has so far exceeded the number of pre-war T-90Ms that were in existence, because there was around 30 of them pre-war, and I believe at this point around 70 T-90Ms have been visually confirmed to be destroyed. And we still don't know how many more there are that are inside of the Russian Federation or inactive in a frontline unit that hasn't been destroyed yet. So it's really hard to get those kinds of numbers. That's actually why we kind of stopped doing that comparison, because after a while it started to become quite clear to me that in some categories our numbers were starting to become a little bit outdated, because they were the pre-war numbers, they weren't the current war's numbers. I think the United States Department of Defense probably has that intelligence, but at the same time they're not going to publish that publicly yet, because they wouldn't want the Russians to know exactly what we know and don't know, because that could end up giving them an advantage and help them to perform some levels of deception. But beyond that, it is something I would like to do. It's just that if we did something like that, I would have to say it would be a bit like charlatanism on my end. We could do it, sure, Trademarks bad, it's no problem. It's just that we'll be guesstimating everything at that point and how much of it really is left, because they are replacing stuff. It's just that we don't know by how much. We know that they're still at a deficit, especially in the tank and APC categories, and no matter how many T-90Ms they're producing right now, they're still overall losing tanks every single month, but we don't know by how much. We just know that it looks as though the supply yards are almost completely empty or completely devoid of any kind of real armor equipment. So I would have to say I hope that does address that the best I can. I will give it a shot, though. No problem at all, Trademarks and Patents. I'll see about trying to bring that back around at least every once in a while, but let's see. I'll have to say it's going to be really tough, and also I just want everyone to know I'll be kind of eyeballing everything. It'll be like Palmetto State Armory's quality control assurance. It's just eyeballing it. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the massive support. And I thank you for being an old guard as well, Trademarks and Patents. You've been around as long as BC Skyman has. And it's great to see that you were in the live chat tonight, and it's wonderful to know that you're still here and watching and enjoying this channel enough, and even supporting it as well, because all of that helps us to make sure that this channel is able to run every single day of the week. And we thank you greatly for that, because it's only folks like you who've made this thing possible since that day of when this channel blew up on the 4th day of the war. And I got to thank you so much for being here 833 days later and still watching this channel, still supporting it, and still helping us to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are going to be moving on to the next one. And, you know, Maddie, I saw a bot, you banned him, and it looks like you responded to him as well. I saw it before you banned him, and I was sitting there thinking, that is the dumbest take I have ever heard. Like I hate to say it, like, that is the dumbest take. Like, I've never seen a brain-dead person like that, not only that violent over something like that, but also saying something that makes absolutely no sense.
It made about as much sense as Putin saying, we're going to blow up the West, and then 2 minutes later, we didn't threaten anybody. What are you talking about?
Yeah, also, really quickly, in case y'all are wondering what it is, and I have a feeling that this is a fairly common sense thing, so I feel like there shouldn't even be really any ruffled feathers, is that someone just said, because we, of course, have a no politics rule, and under that rule, we also have a no religion rule, where we don't have people getting into religious fights in our comments section, because it really ends up the same as politics. And someone decided to say, dude, stop saying the Bible is religion. That's the stupidest shit in the world I've ever heard. It's reality. You effing godless Fs. And then they got banned. Like, I'm just saying this. I'm a Christian, but Christianity is a religion, just like democracy is a form of government. You know, that's kind of stupid to say that Christianity isn't a religion. It is. Like, that's like saying that, you know, that's so
Does he roll up in a church talking like that?
I don't know. There seems to be a lot of people like that these days who are extremely violent and foul like that. But I'm just saying, y'all, I mean, like, do I sound stupid or something? But isn't religion? Like, you know, isn't Christianity a religion, just like democracy and communism are different forms of government? Like, that's like saying, oh my god, stop calling democracy a government, you stupid bastard. It's the only form of, it's like, how in the world do you even say that? It's like, it's the only form of government there is? It's like, I don't even understand that. But that was someone right there who may be a little bit crazy. Maybe just a little bit. I don't want to say it for sure, though, because the cussing that he gave us at the end let me know that at least he has a little bit of mental stability. And also the way that he said the whole thing and really didn't use any common sense at all lets me believe that he is at least a little bit mentally sane. But sadly, that is something a little bit wild. A little bit wild to see. And now I'm seeing people throwing in religious comments. That's not the point. The point was to say something that is pretty straightforward, you know, because it's like in all honesty, that's like saying, oh, you know, like about the Republican or Democrat Party, just to, you know, say this really quickly, not condemning or supporting one or the other, but that's like saying, oh, stop talking about the Republican Party being a political party. It's the only true belief system. It's like, it is a political party. That's what it is. You know, it's like the same with the Democrats. It's like, that's the same with Christianity and everything else. It's like, it's a religion, just like governments are governments and political parties are political parties. The religion's a religion. You know, that's something I've never seen anyone make that argument before. That was new. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and moving on to our next one here, we have two $22 donations from Merlin71.
Hey!
And thank you very much, Merlin, for the euros. That is 22 euros times 2 for 44, that is. And thank you very much, Merlin, for that. He says, I really want the patch. I will pay for the shipment. I don't care. I want it from my bag. And he said, I want the patch, OMG. And Merlin wants the patch. And Merlin, I have a fix. I don't want to guarantee anything because I don't know for certain if once I add the extra weight to the package, if it's going to increase the shipping cost once again with a 3-pack of patches. But that is my tentative plan. I'm trying to make it happen. The other option is I might simply put it on there after we end tomorrow night. We're going to end for the American viewers. I'm reserving some of the patches for the international audience. Just by the way, I put a cap on it to reserve some for y'all. We might maybe see if we might put it on there without the 3-pack, maybe just the 1-pack, and see who wants to pay that shipping. I just feel really bad about that, honestly. I know it's like, if you want to pay it, you'll pay it, but I feel bad about charging that kind of shipping for a $10 patch. It kind of like, it doesn't sit right with me, but we'll see. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that in my opinion, I would love to get him out internationally, but even doing the 3-pack thing, I don't know. It's such a hard thing because the 3-pack thing is the only way we can do it, really, in the end. There's no way to get the shipping down lower, so we just end up having to sell more of them at a time to make sure that the shipping makes sense. It's a tough one. And Merlin says he'll pay, but still it's insulting, though, to make people pay that much for shipping for a single patch. It's just, I don't know. It's a really tough thing. We'll probably end up selling them in 3-packs. Maybe y'all can give them out to friends. Maybe even, oh man, yeah. Like I think that's the best we can do. I think Matthew covered that fairly well. But we are going to try and find a way, Merlin71, that we can get all of the patches out that we can, as much as we can to the international viewers. But it's a little bit more difficult than doing U.S. shipping for the most part. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Merlin71, and wanting to help this channel to keep on running, and not only that, wanting to get patches. But before we move on, and thank you, by the way, so much once again for support, I have to say that I brought up the no politics, no religion thing, and then mentioned that guy, one, because he was crazy, and I think everyone can kind of agree that Christianity is a religion just like Islam or Judaism or any of the other religions of the world, but there is still a no politics and no religion rule on this channel. I wasn't supporting or condemning Christianity or any other religion for that matter. I was just bringing up a crazy guy in the chat. It's something that I believe is a pretty a flat on its face fact. But that does not mean that I want everyone in the live chat right now professing that they're, of some religious affiliation or not. That was not the point of that. The point of that was to point out something that was absolutely ridiculous. On its face, the statement doesn't even make sense, and the statement that they then followed with, which is just absolute insanity, was hilarious. That was the whole point of pointing it out. But it was not brought up so that way everyone could use the moment to go into the chat and be like, oh, I'm a proud Muslim, or I'm a proud Christian, or an atheist, or something, because that's not allowed on this channel. I'm just wanting to put that out there. Just like it's not allowed for people to profess a political leaning on this channel either, either by us or by folks in the chat. So I would have to ask, make sure to follow the no politics, no religion rule in the live chat, because we generally don't support that, because that's just going to end up creating fights and arguments in the chat that we could end up avoiding for the most part. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next super chat is going to go to Trister1, who puts in a $100 donation. And thank you very much, Trister, for that massive support. He says, for shipping patches internationally, I think you meant to say, the autocorrect got him. But thank you very much, Trister, for that support. Also, by the way, just to be clear, Trister, thank you very much for that. We're not going to ask anyone to donate to a shipping fund, by the way. You're not going to do that, because we don't want to have the haters back running around talking about, oh, we did something for fun, and it's total bogus, and they run around saying we did something. Don't want that. But at the same time, I'm thinking of ways in my head to potentially lessen the load of the shipping. And I got to run all of them by Enforcer first, because me and the Enforcer have to make joint decisions on the merch store. It can't just be unilateral. So I would say right now what I was going to do, but I got to run it by him first. But the 3-pack thing, I think we might be able to lessen the cost for the international viewers, just because the shipping's so high, and find a way to shave a little bit off the top on the actual product costs. So we'll have to talk that over in the background, but I think we could make that work to at least lessen, maybe $5 or $6 or $7 off the shipping and just take it from the product cost instead. But I'll have to talk it over. But Enforcer, what say you?
We are going to look at that, and that was something I was thinking about a second ago, is that we may end up being able to shave down the price per patch a little bit to make the pack cheaper. I don't know by how much we could do that, but we will try just to make it seem a little bit more reasonable, because we don't want, the thing is that we want international viewers to be as happy as the American viewers right now with getting patches or getting access to patches, but we have to make it make sense for international viewers to be able to get them. And so we can end up trying to reduce the cost a little bit. We'll have to figure out by how much we really can once we get off air. But still, I hope that does address that the best we can. Shipping is still something we will have to deal with. And also, I have to back up what Matthew said. There are people out there who will use anything against us as ammunition, and saying a shipping fund kind of a thing. If we do not disclaim this, it will be used against us as ammunition. We actually disclaimed it the first time too with the whole drone fund thing. Where's your drone? Well, it was my drone. I bought it and then it got lost in the mail. But beyond that, to address this one, there is no shipping fund. We are not fundraising for a fund to ship stuff to people in Europe. We are not doing that. Every super chat on this channel is assumed to be going directly to us, with no intention of sending that to Ukraine or sending that to a nonprofit or anything. If we do end up doing something like that, that's because we did that with our own personal money. It's not because we were obligated to do that because of a super chat or anything like that. I hate to have to go through that whole spiel, but if we don't, there's going to be some stupid idiot out there who does like crack or something in Minnesota that will start saying that we're stealing money or something like that. So we have to make that clear, that is some kind of a joke in the super chat, or that it's never intended to do that in the first place, because all super chats support the channel. And if you want to support Ukraine, either you can do that with the link in the description below to Unite24, or you can wait for the Sunday night fundraiser and support that, which helps out a great deal. And I know you know about that, Truster, because you supported the Sunday night fundraiser, good deal. And I know that you're just kidding around with that, but we have to make that really clear, or else some idiot out there is going to try and spin it against us and make it sound horrendous. But still, thank you so much.
Also, real quick, I want to address two different things I saw in the live chat. Someone said, why don't you ship the patch with the shirt? And the catch with that is, our shirts ship from the supplier. So the people that actually print the shirts, they're the end shipper for that. So we don't ever touch the shirts. But on the patches, we ship that from our own HQ, from our own location. So there's no way to ship them together. And also, I saw some folks talking about, well, just send it in a regular mail envelope. We couldn't do that either, because we might get put in the pen if we don't put the customs paperwork with it. And I don't want to go to the pen over the patch. So we're going to have to send it with the customs, like a label on it and all that stuff, which means it has to go by ground shipping. And with the ground shipping, that's where we get into the higher costs, because it has to go through customs. It's really stupid. Yes, I know customs for a patch seems a little bit ridiculous, but that's what it is. And like I said, I really, really do not want to go to the pen. But Enforcer, what say you on that?
And I have to say, I would
want
actually
to go to the pen?
I do not want to go to the pen. That would be the federal pen, wouldn't it? Since it's some sort of a mail crime.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah, I do not want to go to federal pen. I'm totally okay. I'm totally okay with staying out of federal pen. And so I hope that does address that the best we can. I think that's the best we can do at the moment. Matthew's really the one in charge of all that, making sure that everything runs well on that end. So he knows more about that than me. Like I can know more about Chinese battle tactics and stuff, but Matthew's going to be the one who knows about the merch a great deal more than I do. So if he says that can't work, it will not work. It just cannot. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you all once again for wanting to help us to find solutions. And I hope that we're all figuring this out together. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, I see people agreeing the pen is bad. Now, at least the federal pen is not that bad. Like the state pen is where it's not really a pen in the state. It's more like a state jail. That's rough. The state jails, oh my God, the state jails in Alabama are horrific.
Ooh.
Very bad.
I have to say, as governor, I'm going to build 2 more shitholes.
You'd much rather end up in the federal pen if you're in Alabama than the state one, because you're going to be really messed up. You are basically forced to join a gang. You have to join one of those racist gangs to be able to survive in state jail. It's just a given. Otherwise, you're gonna be screwed.
Oh my lord, it is so bad. Like, I'm not even kidding y'all. This isn't even like this isn't a political thing. This is just truth. Everyone in Alabama knows it. Our prison system, the state prison system, is horrendous. It is an actual battle royale going on in the state prison system, and it's so bad. I believe the federal government actually threatened to take control of the Alabama state prison system at some point because it was getting that bad. So now Alabama's like overcompensating, to be entirely honest, and we're now building an exorbitantly massive amount of prisons, to the point that really almost all the state's discretionary spending is going into building prisons, which is then now like a meme. Like it's a whole joke here. It's like, oh, I guess that's going straight to a prison, and it is. Like no joke. Almost all the state's money is going into prisons right now. So we'll be seeing what that results in the future. I mean, it's resulting in some jobs. I mean, someone's got to build the prisons and stuff. But beyond that, you know, it's something here in Alabama with that. But still, I hope we address that well. And before we move on, Matthew, someone said, David Venegas Martinez said, any war video footage? Can't you read? It's the end of the stream. We're in the questions. Oh, I'm just kidding. We're past the news segment. It's the question segment now. If you want to watch the news, just rewind the stream. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can about Alabama and the joke I made and what it means. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to Barry King. He throws in a $50 donation, and huge shout out to Barry King for the support. Very generous, and he threw in a super sticker. He threw in one that has the YouTube creature riding that HIMARS rocket out into the sunset, and it jumps off right before it crashes because it doesn't want to go down with the ship. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd like to think, man, that pair is actually a Chinese Communist Party member that is flying on one of the Hwasong 13s that was fired by the People's Liberation Army rocket forces, which is
could be.
Man, I would. You know what? I need to pull up that Bing Chilling copy paste, man. Hang on, Bing Chilling copy pause. Let me go grab it. Here we go. 小熊哈中国欣赏我有冰淇淋。 会形成我冰淇淋. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. You didn't throw in a comment, but we love that meme. And there's an endless amount of jokes that you can make about it. An endless amount. And I thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running and supporting this thing and making it possible. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now running this thing, making sure that we keep it going like clockwork. It means a lot to us. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
Yes, indeed. And our next one here is going to go to Surprise. It's us who puts in a $20 donation. And that's what the Ukrainians said to the Russians today on the battlefield when they blew up that oil refinery. It said, surprise, it's us. But anyways, they said, get well, Rangers rule. And yes, get well to Rangers rule indeed.
And I hope Rangers rule does get better. I hate to hear that things were a little rough for you. And also Kevin J, who was one of our Morse code decoders, had a tornado pretty much go right over his head. So the connection out there where he was a little splotchy. So I hope that Kevin J is doing all right. And I hope that Rangers Rule is doing okay too, because Rangers Rule is an old guard. He has been around forever. And surprised it's us. You know that because you've been around here forever too. So I hope that everyone wishes both Kevin J and Rangers Rule that they're doing well, and hopefully their situations are improving. Because it's always a little bit difficult to get through arduous times, and it always makes people feel better when they know they got a lot of backing behind them and a lot of people cheering them on. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, surprises us, and making that a shout out. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for supporting this channel and keeping this thing running.
Indeed. And our next one here goes to Trister1, who puts in a $20 donation yet again. This is his second super chat of the night, and a huge shout out to Trister for that. He says, armor can't defend well, attackums against drones yet, and this is warfare rapidly evolving.
This is a warfare manifest. And yes, warfare is evolving rapidly, and usually during times of major conflict, wars always evolve rapidly. It's the times in between wars where there can be some evolution in warfare or the premise of warfare, but you don't really see it as much as when you're actually in a war, because people are having to try and come up with ways to find advantages over their opponent. And I would say that tanks aren't done and tanks aren't out. We actually are friends with a fella who actually watches the show. He's on Twitter, and he's hell, man. How many followers does that guy have? Like 350,000 or something like that.
It's a huge amount. It's a ton,
huge.
especially on Twitter. That's massive.
Yeah, I mean that's massive. His name's Trent Talenko, and he actually stated something today that we've been saying a lot on this channel. I completely agree with the sentiment that main battle tanks are not obsolete. It's just that they are going to require an evolution to be up to date and usable on the modern battlefield, just like tanks in the past have. I mean, think about this. Tanks will have to adapt. They always have had to adapt. A World War II era tank would not survive on a modern battlefield. That's a simple thing that everyone knows. Everyone knows that. There's no World War II tank that would do well on a modern battlefield, and that's because they're obsolete. War has changed so much since World War II that the tank had to evolve a lot since then, and it's completely different of a vehicle now than it was back then in terms of its abilities and what it can do. And that's what the next generation of tanks will have to be. The next generation of tanks will have to have a large amount of active protection systems to help make sure that the vehicle doesn't even really get hit in the first place. To be quite honest, tanks are probably going to move the way that navies have moved over the past few decades, because navies went from having battleships like the USS Iowa, which I'll show y'all, or the Iowa class battleship. And let me get a good picture of this for y'all. Actually, here we go. Here's the Iowa in dry dock, which is really weird to look at. That honestly doesn't even look like a picture, actually. But anyways, you have the USS Iowa, and then you have, let's see, probably the best equivalent in the modern day, the Ticonderoga class missile cruiser, which is, I think, the largest non-aircraft carrier vessel we have in the U.S. Navy right now. Let me check that. Maybe the Zumwalt's a little bit bigger. Yeah, the Zumwalt is actually a little bit bigger than the Ticonderoga. So the Zumwalt is actually the biggest vessel in the U.S. Navy, I believe, at this point, that is not an aircraft carrier. But beyond that, we went from ships having some of the thickest armor that was ever seen in history on a warship, up until today, where the armor on a cruiser like this is non-existent. It is just structural steel. There is really no armor on any of these modern-day vessels. And the reason why is because the world of war, at least at sea, evolved rapidly. Instead of a battleship having a lot of armor, what they needed to be able to do was have a lot of active protection systems, because any kind of weapon at some points was able to end up destroying a battleship. Any aircraft carriers in the area, any kind of missiles that could be fired, could destroy a slower moving battleship of that size. And not only that, the weapons were outdated as well. They had to have longer range weapons, which meant that they had to start to try and increase the speed of the vessel, which meant that they had to shave off armor, and then that means that the vessel could not be hit. So then they came up with a whole bunch of active protection systems for a ship like the Ticonderoga, and that's where we get the Sea Whiz, or the close-in weapon system. And let me show y'all that. Let's see. Let me go CIWS. I spelled it wrong. So this is the Phalanx Sea Whiz, which is one of the active protection systems that everyone would know about. It is a little rotary gun that they put on these vessels that picks up a incoming air target, and it shoots at it until it destroys it. That is what ships do nowadays. That's why they don't need armor. Ships of the modern day were never designed to actually be hit by a weapon. If they were hit, they're in trouble. That's just how it is. The battleship Iowa was meant to be hit. There were no active protection systems at the time, and not only that, fire from enemy ships was largely inaccurate. You could fire a load of rounds, few of them would hit. Like, just go look at the the battles that occurred just trying to sink the Bismarck, in terms of ship-on-ship conflicts. Very few of the shots fired actually hit in any of those conflicts, and the ones that did were pretty critical hits almost every single time. But beyond that, nevertheless, modern ships just are not designed for that kind of fighting. They evolved with the warfare that they had to be involved in. And just like that, the tank will have to evolve as well. Probably in the same way these ships of the modern day have evolved. They will probably be a lot less armored in the future, in my honest opinion. I think they're going to be going back to the kind of World War II philosophy that brought the death of the heavy tank, like the Tiger II, which was probably one of the heaviest well, not main battle tanks, but medium tanks, well, heavy tanks used in the Second World War. And let me get a picture of one right here. This one's from Bovington Tank Museum. We actually saw that one in person. And then right after the war, you started to see main battle tanks like the Leopard 1, which have no armor compared to their Tiger II counterpart. This is Leopard 1A5. Let me find y'all a picture of an actual early iteration Leopard 1. Here we go. That's what the Leopard 1 looked like originally when it was actually introduced into the service. And that's what tanks evolved into. This thing has no armor compared to a Tiger II. Absolutely none. Like, it's a huge reduction. But that's because armor didn't mean anything anymore. Anything could punch through the heavy armor of a main battle, well, a heavy tank at the end of World War II. So armor meant nothing. What meant something at that point was more firepower and more maneuverability. Armor could be put on the backslide as far as tank development went. And then that meant that they were focusing on making sure that the tank wouldn't be in one place for too long where it would get hit and destroyed. Nowadays, the evolution of the tank isn't going to be revolving around just more maneuverability and firepower, because there physically at this moment is no way to make a tank maneuverable enough to be able to avoid an FPV drone in reality. What they are going to start focusing on is making it to where the tank probably will not get hit. That means that they'll develop the tanks of the future where they have less armor, so that way they're lighter, and they can accommodate the heavier active protection systems like a trophy system that would be needed to protect against FPV drones and other kinds of incoming targets like anti-tank guided missiles, or even just other high explosive anti-tank rounds fired from other tanks that may be attempting to hit the vehicle. So that's really where the evolution of the tank is going, in my opinion. I do not think that the tank is going to be gone from the battlefield for a single minute. It's just that the tanks of today are no longer adequate for the battlefield conditions that they meet, and for that reason, they'll either have to adapt or they will end up being lost in incredibly high numbers on the battlefield. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can and give some really good examples and some really good comparisons. And I thank you so much once again for support and throwing in your 2 bits on the matter. And also, thank you for letting me go down a little rabbit hole on the tanks, because it's always fun to talk about tanks and rabbit holes about tanks, because there's so many people who say all kinds of weird things, I'm not going to lie, about the tank and where it will be going in the future. But still, I would agree with you, Trister. Warfare is rapidly evolving, and just like it is with everything, tanks will have to adapt, or they will not be able to be used on the modern battlefield. And let's see, attack him and his 2 drones. And so with that, I hope that I did address that well. I had to make sure that I addressed it well right there. I was making sure to read it. I thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, unfortunately, I just took a look at the order list just a second ago, because I'd gotten half of the shipment out today for half of the patch orders. And now I look back down at it and I was like, oh my God. It's like, oh goodness. All my progress today is like disappeared from the radar. I'm once again like back at square zero.
Could you
with
text
the same
me
amount
like
of
a
shipments
number?
to do. I'll text you. Let's see. I got set back almost all my progress, I think. Let's see here. This is like that thing, like at the fair, like if you want to dunk someone, you like throw that baseball and dunk them in the water. That's basically what people have done. They've dunked me in the water again. Let's see here. Let me see if I can type and yap at the same time.
And also, Trister, that's fine with the autocorrect thing. Autocorrect screws me over so much when I'm texting. It's insane. So I completely get that. But let's see here. Oh, dang, dude, that's crazy, man. Yeah,
It's crazy.
Cross. But with that, I hope we talked about that good enough. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Blue Flam LSA, and he put in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Blue Flam, for that support. He has a joke. He says, my granny goes into a sporting goods store to buy a new shotgun. It's for my husband, she says. The clerk asks, did he tell you what gauge to get? I said, are you kidding? Oh, God. He doesn't even know that I'm going to cap him.
Dang! Oh, my God! Granny's packing, Matthew. That's what we need to get out of this. Moral of the story, Granny got that heat.
Crazy.
Granny got that heat, Matthew. She's putting out them heaters on the block. You know what I mean? She whipping the block, spinning the Glock. But still, I thank you so much for the support, Blue Flam 777, and that's an interesting one right there. But The next one I feel works off of it, doesn't it, Matthew?
It kind of does. And this one says Granny got arrested at the airport last week. Apparently, security doesn't appreciate it when you call shotgun before boarding a plane. That sounds about right. That sounds about right.
Oh man, you know something, Blue Flame. Not only speaking about the joke, speaking in all seriousness, I actually got apparently listed or something way back when we were younger, and we were still in high school and everything, and we were kind of like kids. Well, we're still kind of kids, like we were hardly out of high school, we're hardly out of college. Just don't tell anyone that. But anyways, when we were in like high school, and I think it was like 2018 and 2019, those 2 years we went on trips to Britain. Only times we ever went outside the United States. And for some reason, Matthew, because you'll remember it, I don't know what it was, but apparently I was just deemed like a flight risk or something everywhere I went, because I was always pulled off to the damn side and treated like a terrorist. Like, I have no idea why. I had done nothing. I think I was like 17 or 16 or something when all of this was happening. It's like, I'm a kid. Why in the world am I being pulled aside? Like I would go through all the metal detectors like everyone else. I would be totally fine. Everything out of the pockets, shoes off, all that stuff. And then they'd be like, hang on, we need you to step off to the side. I'm like, what for? Like, what in the world did I do? I did everything by the letter. Like, it was so stupid. Like, even in Britain, they did it.
What's crazy? You know what's crazy as well? While they were yanking you off to the side every single time and stuff like that, not only did they not yank me off to the side, they were smiling like, go right ahead, sir, right this way. And also they gave me that TSA pre-check thing without me even applying for it. They just gave it to me, like just out of the blue. I didn't even do anything to get it. And you have to go through a whole process to get that. They just slapped it on my ticket one day and it was like, there you go. It's like, oh, thank you so much. It's like, I have no idea what I did to get this, but they just let me through everything, like with no problem.
Yeah.
Just smiling like, this way, sir. Meanwhile, they're pulling enforcer off to the side. I'm like, hey, step over this way. I'm like, oh my god,
man, I was
look
like,
at that.
what the hell? And also, by the way, y'all, I didn't even like some people were saying, oh, the enforcer looks shifty. Yeah, I do. But the goatee, I didn't even have it by then. Like, I grew the goatee, I think, a year out of high school after in 2021 or something. So when this was happening, I didn't even have a goatee. Like, I had a bowl, like I hate to say this, I'm kind of embarrassed to say it. I had like a bowl cut and just a clean shaven face. That was what I looked like, kind of. That's what both Matthew and me looked like, because times were different. And still, he got prioritized and I got side listed. I don't know why. But anyways, with that, I hope that
you pull this beautiful face off to the side. How could you?
I mean, how in the world could you pull my shaven baby face off to the side? Like, ridiculous even. But that's what used to happen. And I was always like, this is ridiculous. A crime even. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you for throwing in 2 good jokes, Blue Flame 777, and really lighten the mood. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Damn, man, somebody roasted the hell out of you in the live chat. I don't know if you saw that or not, but somebody just roasted you bad.
Dang, man.
You see that?
Yeah.
Damn, like I don't even know how to take that. But anyways, damn, that's kind of brutal. But our next one here goes to Jolly Hiveling, who puts in a $20 donation. And huge shout out to Jolly for that support. That is very generous of you. And Jolly says, will the French Foreign Legion fight in Ukraine, or is it regular French forces fighting?
French Foreign Legion forces are a regular part of the French army. And let me go pull up the French army structure and show that. Because I believe the Foreign Legion has actually been kind of spread out throughout the entirety of the French army. And so if we look right here, and let me go down here. So where is the Legion Étrange? And see, I'm not seeing it over here. So let me move over here and over here. I think they're a little bit further over. Where the hell are they? Because they were over here for a good bit. Oh, come on. Oh, here we go. Here's the Foreign Legion right here. There's a part of it. This is a battalion-sized unit right here that deals with recruitment for the Foreign Legion. And then we have a battalion of Foreign Legion infantry. It doesn't look like they're mechanized infantry either. It's just infantry. That's kind of interesting. I guess they're lightly equipped or something like that. But anyways, let's see here. What else do we have? Where's the rest of the Foreign Legion? Here we go. All of them in red, from what I understand, are part of the Foreign Legion for the most part. We can see right here, this is a regiment And let's see, I don't know what that symbol stands for, unfortunately, but it is some kind of a recon regiment, possibly, for the French Foreign Legion. We then have, let's see, 2 mechanized regiments of the French Foreign Legion right here. We then have an armored regiment for the French Foreign Legion. And then most of the French Foreign Legion, from what I can tell, is a part of the 6th Brigade. So I hope that does address that kind of well about the French Foreign Legion, because a lot of people always think, because the Foreign Legion is the Foreign Legion, that it's not a regular part of the French Army. It's a part of the French Army like any other. It's really their version of, say, the Rangers here in the United States. And the Rangers aren't any kind of like a unofficial part of the U.S. Army. It's a part of the U.S. Army. And the French Foreign Legion is kind of the same thing. But if the French were to go into France, I don't really know what division they would probably want to send. In all honesty, they probably would want to send, and let me see here, they probably would want to send either the 7th Brigade, because it's mostly armor and mechanized forces, or they would probably want to send the 2nd Brigade, because it's mostly armored and mechanized forces as well. That would help out greatly in the situation in Ukraine, because that kind of terrain is more conducive to armored warfare than anything. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for support and asking that question. And I hope I was able to address that fairly well. And let's get to the next one.
And our next one goes to Panama Floyd, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Panama Floyd. Tuche for the support. He said, Enforcer Matt and Enforcer, forget the Men at Work tune from Australia, and look up Eagle Rock by Daddy Cool. It might be copyrighted.
Oh, that will be copyrighted. Like, if it's an actual band name and everything, copyrighted for sure. But I still thank you for the support. We would pull it up if it wasn't for the copyright concerns. But still, thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running and making this channel possible. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you.
Indeed. And also, I see folks talking about the TSA and the live chat down here. I don't know why, but TSA knows how to scream out commands in the most rude, condescending like tone I've ever heard in my life. Like, to tell someone to take off their shoes, like, excuse me, sir, take off your shoes. They have to say, take off your damn shoes, take them off right now. It's like, damn. It's like, why you gotta be so crazy? I remember when we flew back into the Atlanta airport from England, like that one time we got to go to England, and we flew back, and it was like freaking whiplash, like going back to the Atlanta airport with the TSA. People like almost got into a fight, like leaving the airport with one of the TSA workers. Literally got into a fist fight with one of them because they were throwing our luggage on the floor like a lunatic. And the guy was like, "You want to square up?" After we confronted him about the luggage being thrown. It's like, "You want to square up?" It's like, what? It's like the dude was dead serious. His coworkers pulled him away from the whole situation. It was like, what the hell is going on? It's like some of the TSA people are crazy as hell. Like seriously, like wild.
Yeah, I mean they're absolutely crazy, man. I was sitting there. I remember when that happened, man. I remember that Mama went to the cop that was nearby. Remember that, Matthew? And then the cop just like,
he didn't give a damn either.
Yeah, he didn't give a shit. Like I was like, wait, this guy, like we asked him, like, why in the world did you just throw our luggage? You know, like we had some fragile-ish stuff in there, you know, like the shampoo bottles or whatever the hell it was. And one of them, like, I remember this, like this was something that happened that was absolute BS, is that they throw the luggage on the plane. I guess they threw it on hard enough or something. We flew from Atlanta to London. We get off the plane at London and we're like, damn, something smells like glycerin. The glycerin bottle, which I don't know why in the world our dad was carrying around like a Listerine, whatever. I don't know why in the world he was carrying around like a 1 liter bottle of it, but it blew up or something, or the cap broke open while being transported over there, and it leaked over everything. So, and the thing reeked of Listerine, and it was horrendous, like absolutely terrible. And I would have to say, I don't like the TSA at all. Like, and also the TSA, from what we know statistically, is a completely pointless organization. It hasn't really prevented any attacks. It hasn't stopped anyone. It hasn't caught anyone. Because don't y'all remember, like, just a few years ago when that laptop thing was brought onto the plane and it blew up and it killed like 3 people and it almost crashed the plane? And TSA didn't catch that. I mean, like, what are they there for, really? Like I say, most of the time I try and understand where most government organizations or institutions come from, but to be quite honest, I don't think this is a political thing. I think this is something everyone can agree on. The TSA is a goofy organization that has really no purpose. The only purpose it has is to make people feel like they're safe when they really don't do anything to make them safe. And for that reason, if I was president of the United States, I would either greatly curtail the size of the TSA, considering I believe it's an agency in the executive branch, or I would completely get rid of the TSA. That would be my honest opinion on that. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion, because I don't like the TSA, and I also don't like that I was pulled aside every single time I went flying. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again, everyone, for bringing up the TSA, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, Tesla's probably right. It leaked because of the reduced air pressure in the plane. That's probably what did it. Probably got it leaking out because of that. And that was not wise to bring a whole bottle of Listerine into the plane like that. Terrible idea. But anyways, moving on to our next one here. We have a $20 super chat from Char G. And thank you very much, Char G, for that $20 support, and we appreciate you very much. He says, one double combo and animal-style fries with chocolate shakes for the boys, T1 FTC. And he puts in the palm tree and the burger, because that's what they do there at that place. At what the hell is it called? What the hell? I'm forgetting the name of the place.
In-N-Out?
In-N-Out. Damn, it's In-N-Out Burger. Damn, man. How did I forget that? In-N-Out does the palm tree, and they do that all over the place. They put that on everything, and it looks super cool. But I thank you so much, Chargy, for that double combo. So much. And also, I didn't get to try the animal-style fries, but I'm going to try that whenever we go out to one again. But thank you very much for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much for the support as well in helping this channel to keep on running. And I got to say, that it is absolutely wonderful, Sharky, that you want to support this channel, help it to keep running, and also help us out with that Boyka Fund, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and making this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Tom Exman, who puts in a 10. And also, let me get rid of this person. There they go. Tom Exman put in that $10 donation and said, hey, check Mount Kenlan eruption in the Philippines, and I have a family I mission to there.
Let's see, Mount. How do you spell that?
It's Kanlaon.
All right. So here is. Oh, look, they actually have a little marker on the map for it. So where is this in the Philippines? Okay, so this is in the central area of the southern part of the island chain. And so let's see here. Wait a minute, what's the name of this island? To hell? It's Spanish, by the way.
Oh.
It's Spanish, by the way. It's Spanish, okay? Like I saw it and then it clicked and I was like, oh, wait a minute, it's Spanish. But anyways, let's look and see what we got right here. So let's see. Little eruption. It's on the island name that would get us banned off of YouTube, of course. That's just wonderful. And let's see here. Can I get back down to the volcano itself and show a picture of it? So this is the volcano that erupted. This is what it looks like. It actually looks really cool. So let's see here. We got people taking pictures in front of it because it's okay. This guy may have screwed up with the whole finger pointing thing. He's like pointing at a cloud instead of the volcano, but that's fine. But let's see here. That is a pretty big volcano. Also, that is wild to look at that, where it's like just almost, that looks like it would be like 1,000 feet down to the caldera, I guess it would be called. But that is still really neat. And I gotta say, thank you for the support and pointing that out. And hopefully it's not a major explosion like Mount St. Helens or anything like that, because that was a pretty horrendous one. But I hope that everyone's okay out there. And I thank you for bringing that to our attention and supporting this channel and helping us to keep it running, because folks like you helped to make this thing possible. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now this close to being canceled. this close. That's all about with that. Thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Blue Flam 777 LSA once again. This time he puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Blue Flam, for the third support of the night. He says, growing up, Granny quizzes us. And what's the difference between a double barrel shotgun and a single barrel shotgun? Oh, I can't read that last part there. I cannot read that. That's spicy. And he said, question to the chat.
Let's see here. Oh no! 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 Wait! No! But I thank you for the support, Blue Flame, and we will send a question to the chat. But that punchline might punch a little too hard. But with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, let's get that live chat, Matthew.
So the live chat question is going to go to Marietchin, who says, what about Z not getting more weapons from North Korea and China, etc.?
Let's see. Reread that one again.
I said, what about Z, meaning Russia, not getting more weapons from North Korea and China, etc.?
I think they are getting more weapons. I wouldn't know about them not getting more weapons, because from what I know, the Iranians and the North Koreans are still selling them weapons. So, I hope that does address that well, because I really don't know what that question is asking. If it's asking why are they not giving them weapons anymore, I can't answer that because they're still giving them weapons. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least based off my current knowledge. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat.
Yes, indeed. And our next one goes to Blue Flam 777 LSA once again. This time he puts in a 10 once more for the fourth super chat of the night. Huge shout out to Blue Flam. He puts in another joke, which could be scary potentially. Let's see here. He said, man, I still remember my grandpa's last words to Granny. Stop playing with that shotgun, you little...
Oh,
what?
no.
Whoa,
Whoa, Jack, whoa! Whoa, Jack, whoa, look! Oh, when there's a burglar nearby, no witnesses. But you go to look.
Anyways,
I overthrew the Iranian government in the 70s. I just want to say that if you find a girl and you kind of like her. Invade Panama, but
those bad kids, those kids, you know, they bang the razors on the sidewalk and the wet rain barrel, swinging at people. Oh gosh, watch out! Oh, anyway,
I gotta activate the sleeper cell. Red caboose, green dumpster, yellow fire truck.
He's a Manchurian candidate.
Wet noodle. There's something.
I've awoken.
Revive the American Empire. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Of course, it's greatly appreciated. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and with that, we're moving into our next one here, and this one is going to go to the live chat. Did we grab a live chat?
Oh, I don't think we did. We look. Live chats are only alive if the person asking them is really feeling alive. But yeah, we didn't grab one. You know, why don't you get one?
So this one goes to Butter, who says, "Have you ever heard of a sea breacher?" And yes, I have heard of a sea breacher. It's a very cool piece of tech. I don't think you can convert it to be a weapon-type platform, but it's pretty cool to drive around in. Maybe it's good for maybe putting like special forces into an area, like insertion or extraction or something. That's a possibility. But unfortunately, you know what that is.
Yes, it's that little dolphin thing. The dolphin boat. Yeah.
That's what it is.
The dolphin.
What do you think about it?
Well, I found this picture of someone who mounted a machine gun on one. I mean, that's kind of cool.
They mounted it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a technical boat. Like, there's a machine gun on the boat.
Oh, hell no. What the hell?
That is
They painted the American Eagle all over it, and they put a 50 cal in the back.
Dude, that's
what in the Alabama hell is that?
Dude, that's the kind that you go, what the hell is a kilometer? And you like fire the machine gun off the back of it, and you hear that, like the eagle and stuff. Like, this is. I don't think you can actually turn this thing into a weapon.
Man, look at that guy. Wait a minute. Go down. Look at that guy in that seat right there, scared to death. It's probably how I would look in there if I was in that thing.
Dude, I would be doing worse, man. I'd be throwing up probably. But beyond that, they're neat, but I don't think you'd ever turn these things into a weapon, in my opinion. But I actually never even got to hear the question. Matthew just kind of answered it without me hearing it. But what was the question?
What was a live chat?
Yeah, it was a live chat. Yeah, you didn't even read it. You just started answering it, so I had to kind of work off of your answer.
The question is, have you ever heard of a sea breacher?
Yes, I have, and they are pretty cool. Like we just showed, they're pretty neat. They're like a semi-submersible kind of a vehicle. Pretty cool. But with
That's
that,
literally the question. Don't go with the question.
but with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat, Blue Flam, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Jack Ray, who puts in a $10 donation. He said, "You said you'd cover the other areas, and what happened to the Moro Islamic Liberation Front? Just where did MILFs go?"
That's a good question. Let me go type in. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I actually need to spell that out. Because I typed in MILF. I'm glad I typed that in off screen because the results were pretty bad. So here we go. Here's the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, aka the MILF, as you can see right here. There it is, MILF. And so, let's see here. They existed until 2014 when a permanent ceasefire was agreed upon. So they're kind of like the Filipino version of the IRA. Come out, you black and tans, come out and fight me like a man. Because the IRA still exists. It's just that they don't really. You know what I mean? Like, but anyways, now I can't go to Northern Ireland without getting shot by a provo. But beyond that, well, how in the world do I explain this? It was a thing that went on for a while. It was an Islamic extremist group, which is the crazy thing about their name. But beyond that, they fought the Filipino government. The Filipino government, I believe, almost ended up winning, or they came to some kind of an agreement, and then that's when the permanent ceasefire came into place. And let's see, here we go. Here it is. The Philippine government passed the Bangsamoro Organic Law, giving more autonomy to Muslims. In return, MILF announced that it would disarm its 30,000 fighters. That was one armed MILF right there, even more armed than Chris's mom. But beyond that, I hope that does address that well, and we will talk about that because MILF is a meme, but there's actually so many other terrorist groups that have popped up since MILF in the Philippines that the Philippines continue to have to combat and deal with, and it's a really interesting thing to talk about. No joke. So we could make a video on that in the future. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help it to be a reality. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support.
And this one goes to Max Ader, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Max, for that support as always. And Max is always repping the Cult of Matt. And the Cult of Matt appreciates it. And the Max says, keep up the good work.
And thank you so much, Max, for enjoying this channel. Thank you for wanting us to keep up the good work. We try our hardest every single day of the week. And I got to thank you so much for enjoying this channel tonight and wanting us to continue to keep up the hard work and supporting this channel so that way we can continue to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got a 10 from Vlogger, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Vlogger, for that support.
Honey.
Chinks!
Chinks!
This one goes to Vlogger, who says Russian people have been seen protesting. Do you think there might be a potential civil war starting to brew? Does this pushback have the potential to affect the war in the near future?
Yeah, I've heard of some protests. I haven't heard of any recently. So if you're getting information on that, that's news to me, because I haven't seen them. But I do not believe that's leading to a civil war at the moment. Civil unrest is just civil unrest. It happens everywhere all the time. It really matters if it has the backing of the military, though. If it does, then a civil war would be imminent. But right now, we understand that they do not have the backing of the military, and they probably will not for quite some time, at least from what I know at the moment. So I would say that a civil war probably will not be rising out of that at the moment. And if it ever did, it would probably be years after the war ended in reality. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. can. And with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Carrie Ann, LSA, the first couple of the LSA, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, Carrie Ann, for that support. And also, shout out to Nick as well. They said that doing great as always, guys. And take one from the chat. LSA for life.
Hey, an LSA for life, baby! And I thank y'all both for the support of the first LSA couple. And we will make sure to get one from the chat. But thank y'all so much once again for always being here. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
So this one from the chat, we're looking through our live chats here, and we have this one. It goes to JBW, who says Putin is talking about arming the cartels, or Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, etc.
No, I know. Like, if he's talking about it, they're not going to accept that because, like I was saying earlier, what cartel in the right mind would fire on their paying customers? That would pose issues because not that the customers would stop buying. They would always have a demand and there would always be a supply of that to fill. Because for them, it's really like for the cartel, you know, people look at the cartel and they see a criminal organization, but from their perspective, this is a business. They create a product and they sell the product. It's just that the product's illegal. So it really runs just like any other business. It's just that it's illegal and this group of people is incredibly dangerous. But going off of that, moving on from that, why in the world would they fire on their customer base? Because the only thing that would do is piss off the United States enough that we would actually dedicate enough effort, or we would finally at least make sure that we had the means to go down there and completely destroy the cartel or greatly hinder their efforts to conduct their business. And that's something that's not good for business. The cartel isn't, like, a lot of people have been hearing that the cartel is almost like a paramilitary organization, but the mafia at its height was a paramilitary organization in the major cities like New York and Chicago. But it didn't mean that they were going to start taking weapons from the Soviet Union and firing them on, say, the rest of the United States. That's not what they're there for. They are a paramilitary organization, but they're a business. Well, really more so, they're a business, an illegal business that is somewhat a paramilitary organization. So they would not want to do something that would be detrimental to business. And there's no way that the Russians could level with the cartel to make it sound like it's in their interest to fire a weapon at the United States and then have the entire United States coming after them. And not only that, probably making it much more difficult for them to try and get to their customer base inside of America. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion, because I don't think they'll ever, like, the cartel would ever end up agreeing with that, because they know that that wouldn't be good for business in the end of the day. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Chuck Farley, who puts in a $10 donation. And huge shout out to Chuck, by the way. That is his first ever super chat on the live stream. It says number 1. And Chuck says, could the railway bridge between Z and North Korea be considered a military target because the weapons being supported and supplied by North Korea? And does any Western weapons supplied have the ability to touch it?
The Friendship Bridge is a target, yes. There is no weapons that Ukraine has at the moment that would be able to strike this or hit it, and there are no Western weapons that we will provide to Ukraine that would have the range to strike this and hit this from Ukraine. So it's a military target, yes, but largely untouchable. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that well, at least the best I can. And that's also kind of pitiful that this is literally the only bridge in between North Korea and Russia is a singular railroad bridge. That's it. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right. And our next one here goes to Jason Curling, who puts in a 5 and says, do you think China or Russia ever uses chemical weapons? And he said, to clarify, my super chat means stronger chemical weapons like sarin gas that might be used by the Russians.
We have not seen proof of sarin gas on the front lines by the Russians. The best we've seen is chloropicrine, which is a stronger version of tear gas. Really, it's honestly just tear gas, maybe slightly stronger, but we haven't seen them using sarin gas. And I do not believe that the Chinese in an actual conflict would use sarin gas, because in my readings about the Chinese and their military, the U.S. Army actually believes that the Chinese, for the most part, would actually follow the rules of war in an open conflict about as closely as we do, which is kind of shocking, I know, because they're like a dictatorial regime. But the thing is that the Chinese want to make sure that they're winning the hearts and minds of their enemies and making it look like their leaders are bad guys and they're actually the good guys in the end. The Russians aren't really that good at that side of things, but the Chinese believe that winning the psychological war is as important as winning the actual war on the ground. Well, actually, it's far more important. It's actually the priority. And so, because of that, they want to follow the rules of war and the rules of engagement as best as they physically can, so that way their propaganda doesn't fall flat like the Russians. Because the Russians say, we're trying to save the Ukrainians from a Nazi regime, and then that's immediately falling flat on its face when you see that tens of thousands of Ukrainian citizens are getting killed by the Russian Federation in this war, if not hundreds of thousands of them. The Chinese wouldn't want that, because in their mindset, if they lose the propaganda war, they have lost the war already, because they'll never end up winning the minds of the enemy or the opposition, or defeat them mentally, and for that reason there will always be resistance, even if they won completely, and for that reason there would never be a true victory. So that is something I would have to say about the Chinese, is that they probably would never use chemical weapons in a war, because it would look really bad on a propaganda end. It would easily defeat a lot of their propaganda about them being the good guys, and that would start to pretty much completely moot any other propaganda initiatives that they had going forward. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And y'all, I gotta tell y'all this, like, Matthew and me were getting in an argument the other day on stream about the book I was reading and whether it was accurate intelligence or not. The Chinese, according to the army, are behind in several things. One thing is joint force communications. They aren't really able to use combined arms at the moment. But one thing that the U.S. Army did say that the Chinese were the leaders in the world of at the moment, even compared to the United States, was psychological warfare, not just on the military level, but on the civilian level. And that is a never-ending continuum. It's not something that they begin when they plan on going to war. It's something that the Chinese are constantly involved in. It's really one of the primary operations of the People's Liberation Army, is to try and conduct psychological warfare. And one thing that's really interesting is that, according to U.S. intelligence, they actually see the United States to be one of the weakest and easiest and most malleable targets in the world, because of the kind of freedom of speech that we enjoy in America. And so for that reason, they largely try, and this is something very interesting as well, they were largely planning on actually creating some People's Liberation Army Twitter accounts back in the early 2010s, but then they decided not to, because just a few years later, while that plan was still kind of moving in motion, something happened that really got the Chinese going. TikTok exploded in the United States. And so why in the world did they have to move to conventional Western social media platforms when most Americans were already starting to get onto a Chinese-operated social media platform? So then they started to just operate propaganda, soft power propaganda initiatives through TikTok and other kinds of Chinese social media apps that were being used by Americans to try and influence the American mindset, which all of that is a very interesting thing that the book went into a pretty good bit of detail. But the United States considers the psychological warfare aspect of the Chinese to be a serious threat. So serious that it actually could possibly change the course of battles and maybe even entire theater operations in East Asia if a conflict was to break out, even on a military level. The psychological warfare is that concerning, with the kind of effects that they believe it would have. But then again, we don't really know for sure, because we've never seen the Chinese get into a war with this informationized idea of psychological warfare. So we will have to see what actually would come of that if a conflict began, what kind of psyops would be conducted, and how in the world the Chinese would pull it off. But someone's saying, let's see, I need a book like a citing, please. So the book is the Army Techniques Procedure 100.7-3, I believe, which is the book that the U.S. Army wrote in late 2021. I believe it was like November of 2021 on Chinese tactics. Oh man, we got one of those people. What book? I need a book. Give me the book! I gave you the book! I'm answering your question. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we're on to the next one. But thank you once again for the support.
Yes, indeed. And our next one goes to Radical of an Integer Information Media Activity, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much for that. They said 5 is number of sides of a truncated star fortress.
And that's true. Again, thank you for the support and helping this show to keep on running and throwing in that fact, because star fortresses are cool. I think they're incredibly cool. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on. Okay, we're back. Thank the Lord. I didn't hear any of that super chat. Could you start from the beginning?
John Garner is the one that put this one in. That was so rudely interrupted by that lag. And John said what you said.
About what?
It just said what you said.
Well, I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And what you said. And so that, thank you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Wyatt Logan, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, Wyatt, for your support. He said, I got my shirt today, the LSA shirt. And it's my B-Day. And happy birthday to Wyatt Logan. It's his birthday, and he got an LSA shirt on the birthday. He said, everyone, it fits good, it looks amazing, and it feels great. Unlike Chris's mom.
Oh, what? Oh my goodness, throwing down the heat. And I gotta say, I mean, I hope my t-shirts get here soon, because they should be. But beyond that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Wyatt Logan. I'm glad to hear that you got an LSA shirt. I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying it, and that's comfortable. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to talk about the amazing shirts and patches that you can find at officialenforcerstore.com. Make sure to go to officialenforcerstore.com to get yourself access to the amazing Lee Spring Army flag patches and the amazing Lee Spring Army t-shirt that we've been able to make and put out on our store. It's limited edition, stocks are running out, and you got to make sure to get them before the end of the stream tomorrow. But still, thank you for the support, Wyatt Logan. Thank you for telling us the quality's top notch. And it's a good way. And so with that, thank you once again. We're on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to Marc-Andre Burnett, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, Mark, for that support. He said, I love physics. Out of planet Earth, only bacterial life could have caught that Putin speech live because of the long distance of travel of radio frequency.
Interesting. I thank you for sharing that. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to know that kind of stuff. I didn't know that. You know something? I don't think any living organism on Earth even heard the speech, because no one cared. Like, no one cared at all about that speech. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one, let's see here. Let me see. I think there's a bot in here. Let me see. I'm trying to spot him. I can't do two things at once for some reason tonight. Let's see here.
Oh man. Find him.
He's in here. He's in here. Yep, I see him. There he is. And he's gone. So our next one here, now that nuisance is out of the way, this one goes to Robert Johnson, who puts in the 5 and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Robert, for that support and helping to keep the channel running, because we greatly appreciate it, and it's the viewers that keep us running. And we thank you very much, Robert, for that support. We also have a 5 from Fishing and Kayaking, who says, Slav Ukraine, and take a question from the chat.
And Slav Ukraine, and thank you so much for the support, and we will make sure to take one from the chat. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the live chat.
And the live chat question goes to Toten, who says, the enforcer has been seen drifting a bobcat in the Walmart car park at 2 a.m. I've heard it myself.
Nuh-uh.
That sounds like some Walmart parking lot activities.
I never did that. I have been in the parking lot of a Walmart, but not at 2 in the morning. Now, it was with a bobcat. It just wasn't 2 in the morning, okay? Like, let's get that straight, all right? I do it in broad daylight. But still, thank you so much for the support and helping the show to keep on running. And that was a pretty good one, I'm not going to lie. I appreciate that one. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Thomas Kruger, who puts in a 5 and says, cheers to Enforcer Matt for swatting the bots. And thank you very much, Thomas. I've swatted a lot of bots tonight. There's a whole plethora, a whole unit of bots. I think the Russians have restarted some of their bot farms because they're coming back out in big numbers these days. And also they're showing up in all the channel comments, including ours, every single day. And it seems like, honestly, the bots are getting smarter. They're picking up channel, like, quirks and features, like Doug DeMuro would say, and they're adding that to their roasts and their lamb basting that they like to give channels.
Oh my God, it's so loud.
Yeah, they've done that to us now, too, and they talk about how loud the yelling is. Like, you know, I understand. Sometimes the yelling can get a bit excessive. I get it. But when people come in and say, the yelling's so loud that I cannot handle it anymore, and I recommend everybody else to leave as well. It's like, that's so obvious that's trolling. It's not even funny. It's like they're asking everyone to leave because somebody got loud at one point. It's like, come on.
Chinese deception is what that is.
It's a 10-cent army.
Dude, it really is, man. Like they heard me, like the Chinese started hearing me talk about them, and they were like, okay, it's time to weigh the entire weight of the People's Liberation Army against a specific guy, specifically the People's Liberation Army Special Support Forces. But anyways,
the 10-cent army sucks, and that's my 2 cents.
Listen, I'm just damn, dude. Like that was a good pun. I didn't catch up on that. I was like, dang, that was a good. I'll tell you this, Matthew. No matter how many Russians or how many Chinese come at this channel, there is no psyop that will defeat my stubborn logic and ideas of American democracy and liberty. Put an LSA in the chat if you agree. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jason Curling, who puts in a $4 donation and says, will Russia use that stronger chemical weapon like sarin?
I don't think so. We haven't seen it yet, and I don't think we will, in my opinion. So with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Luis Rosales, who puts in a 2 and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Luis, for that support as well in helping to keep us running. And with that, Luis, you're taking us into the live chat questions as we're fresh out of Super Chats. So, of course, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream. And tonight, it was Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J., Rumpelstiltskin, and David Millsaps. They said, the Morse for tonight says, Russia is dripping away all of their oil slowly, and they will be run dry soon. LLT, LSA.
And that is the sound of money. And y'all got that dead on the nail. Y'all got it right. The Morse code message on 833 was that exactly. Without a single error, without a single space wrong, without a single period wrong. I gotta congratulate y'all once again on getting that correct day in and day out, because it truly is something unfathomable and something very impressive. And so with that, we are now going to be moving on into the live chats proper. But before we do, I do have to say that because of my headache, I am going to be answering questions for probably the next 5 to 7 minutes, and then we're going to be running this thing out, just so that way I can try and rest my little weary head and try and get the headache to go away. And so with that, we are on to the first question of the live chat segment.
So our first question of this segment goes to Kid Rock, who says, do you think Putin is going to give nukes to Belarus so he can use his puppet there to launch and place blame on him?
I don't think so, because like it's if nukes were launched, there's going to be no diplomatic, oh man, all right, who did it? Fess up. It's going to be, they're coming from Belarus, nuke them back, and it's going to be a nuclear hellfire instantly. So in my honest answer, I don't think they're going to be doing that. I don't think nuclear weapons are going to be launched anytime soon. But as far as Belarus getting nuclear weapons, it's really just to proliferate nuclear weapons and cause a major diplomatic situation in the area. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Dan G, who says, how can Ukraine restrict Russian attacks on Ukrainian power systems?
How can Russia restrict the attacks?
How can Ukraine restrict the Russian attacks?
More air defense systems. If they're able to get more and more effective air defense systems, they will be able to limit the attacks. That's really all it boils down to at this point, because all Russian attacks are conducted by the rocket forces of the Russian Federation, either being launched by aircraft or ground forces. And so for that reason, if you have effective or really robust air defense systems that are able to shoot down most, if not all, of those air targets, you are able to protect all of the rear line infrastructure inside of Ukraine. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Doug Chumley, who says, Matt, a Serbian friend of mine says that Russia is fighting with gloves on. And do you think Russia could bring more to the battlefield? And if you're asking me specifically, I would say absolutely not. Because if they had more to bring to the battlefield, then on Victory Day, they would have brought out all of that equipment to show off to the rest of the world to say, hey, look, we do have a ton more equipment, and here it is on display, and we're just waiting to put this on the battlefield. They didn't do that because they don't have that equipment. Also, we do see in mainland Russia, there's a complete lack of equipment or any type of deployments in mainland Russia to protect the homeland, which is why Wagner was able to get so close to Moscow, and while there's literally only police forces left there to deal with any uprisings. So, no, I don't think they have anything left to really deal with here, and Russia is simply fighting to keep up with production to be able to replace their current losses. But Enforcer, what say you?
I've been hearing that statement for 2 years now, that the Russians are fighting with their gloves on, and if they took their gloves off, they'd win. If they could, they would have won by now, because no one would want a war to drag on this long with these kinds of losses. It benefits the Russians none. It only is a major detriment to them. To end this war as quick as humanly possible is what everyone wants to do in a war. And if they had the ability to do that, they would have done that by now. So no, they are not fighting with their gloves off. They're not fighting with their gloves on. They're fighting with their gloves off right now. This is as good as they can do. It's really there's nothing that they can really do at this point, in all honesty. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one's actually a super chat. This is from Sully Canuck. And he put in a 10 Canadian. And huge shout out to Sully for throwing in that support, even in the live chat segment. Thank you, Sully. He says, just want you to know that I'm still here. And please take another question from the chat.
Hey, and thank you so much for letting us know, Sully Canuck. We're happy to have you still. Every once in a while, people go quiet in the live chat, and it's fine. I mean, I get it. People are busy. People can't watch the show every day, and, not only that, some people just want to sit back and enjoy the show without having to type in the live chat, so I completely get it. But still, thank you for being our LSA, our LSN Canadian Navy veteran. Really cool, once again, to have you in here from London, Ontario. But thank you so much once again for support. And now, since you want to sponsor a live chat, I'm going to reset the timer, and we're going to get 3 more live chats, and then we're going to round out the stream. So now we're on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Supernova, who says, if the West unfroze the $300 billion and gave it to Ukraine, would it be enough to ensure a Ukrainian victory?
Yes, with that kind of, it would depend on what they would buy with that, but with that amount of spending power given to them in a single year, they would be outspending the Russians by about 60% right now on military spending if they put all of that into the armed forces. So yes, that would end up allowing Ukraine to get a pretty decisive victory just in spending power alone. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Ev Kaplan, who says, what kind of weapons could Russia possibly provide to a country? Perhaps bioweapons.
They could provide bioweapons, chemical weapons. They could do something like that, but it most likely would end up being conventional weapons used to conduct insurgencies, in my opinion, most likely. But they could actually provide anything on the table, because if they were willing to send it and the other side was willing to receive it, it could literally be anything. But in reality, it mostly would be smaller weapons, RPGs, AKs, things like that. Things that usually are used to conduct an insurgency. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are now moving on to the final question of the night. And so, who was lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Eugene Minton. Eugene! He said, should the USA invade Cuba? Think about it. He said, Putin are trying to get other nations to join to split our forces and resources, and wouldn't he be forced to respond and act for Cuba?
Not really. I don't know if the Cubans and the Russians really have a strong diplomatic relationship anymore. I don't really think they do. And for that reason, we could go down into Cuba, and we could overthrow the government and place in a new one. But why? I mean, it's not really a significant country. To me, it wouldn't be worth it. Simply because, I mean, they're just man, they're kind of lame, really. I mean, there's nothing really going on down there. I mean, when you look at their export market, I think like 8% of the income they make from exports is because they're exporting their own citizens' organs. So it's not really like it's a country that we would want to get that involved in or spend that much time and resources on. It's a pretty much useless country at this point. And even before the communist revolution took over, which, by the way, if y'all wanted to know where that began, it actually began down here in the Bay of Pigs. I'm just kidding. It actually occurred a little bit further down. Let's see, where in the world was it? It actually occurred somewhere around Santa Clara. I think they landed somewhere right off around Trinidad somewhere, but then the Bay of Pigs invasion happened down here. So if y'all are ever wondering, where is the Bay of Pigs? It's not on the northern coast. It's actually down here on the southern coast. And then most of them ended up getting corralled into a little area. There was a landing strip around here somewhere. Let me see if I can find that really quickly. Because I can actually show y'all where most of them ended up making their last stand, because it was near the airstrip. But I can't find the freaking airstrip. It was somewhere right through here in this marshy area. Maybe right here, actually. But that's where most of the folks who were in the Bay of Pigs made their last stand. But beyond that, I'm not really a big fan of invading Cuba. There's nothing down there. And it's not like the Russians are going to sail a navy over and we're not going to pay attention to that and then see that they drop off a nuclear weapon as Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0 again. These people are pretty much down and out for the count. So there's really no reason in dealing with them that much, in my opinion. And, you know, corralling countries against us, if they were countries with larger amounts of power, sure, that would be concerning. Like if the Chinese actually were pulled against us completely and they now became hostile against us, now that would be concerning. But Cuba and Venezuela, which are economically non-existent, being pulled against us, it wouldn't really matter, in my opinion. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and every single one of y'all so much once again for watching. It has been an absolute honor to be able to run this stream for all of y'all. Tonight at the peak, there was about 9.7 thousand people here, and 65,000 people have watched this stream before it ended. We are entirely honored, grateful, and appreciative to be the channel that gets to share the news with y'all each and every single night. It is a position we don't know why we're in. It's a position, actually, because many of y'all will know that we kind of touched on it a little bit for, I think, a day or two, that recently we've been in the top 100 every single day, and it still rings true even today and yesterday. Yesterday we were actually number 75 in the whole world, and today we're probably going to end up being in the 60s somehow, some way. I don't know why y'all enjoy this channel so much, where we end up being a top 100 live stream on YouTube every single day, but we are entirely honored and humbled to know that y'all find this news to be that high quality that y'all would tune into this channel like that daily and watch it. I got to thank y'all all so much once again for being here with us tonight. I got to thank you all for hitting the like button. And if you're new to this channel and you enjoyed it, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. It makes us really happy and makes us really energetic and really boosts our spirits to be able to keep doing this thing each and every day, because we do this 6 days a week without break. We really work 7 days a week, but 6 days a week this live show runs. And so with that, thank you all so much.
Wait, the people want the marmot. The people are dying for the marmot.
They want the marmot. What? They want the marmot. What? What? We gotta get in the marmot. We'll round out on this note of the marmot. Get us the marmot. Get us the freaking marmot. And hey, it's the marmot, baby.
Oh, hello there. Hello, Governor. Welcome back, Governor.
Oh, hello there. Would you like a plum? Or would you like a rock? Or would you like some of that delicious cake, Governor? What would you like?
Oh, man. I would like some. Can I get all three?
I would like some of that Romanian sausage, please. Oh, man. Ew, yuck.
Yeah.
You sick bastard.
It's right. You're disgusting.
Disgusting. And thank you for putting in the $20 super chat, Jack Ray, and saying marmot. We got the marmot up literally right when you put that in. But still, thank you so much once again, Jack Ray, for the support and wanting to see the marmot. And I hope everyone enjoyed the marmot. And that is a perfect way to round out tonight's stream. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And the Leaf Spring Army shall never die. And once again, thank you all for another great stream tonight. And of course, be sure to remember that Smirch equals merch. And check it out at officialenforcerstore.com. And you can put me to work tomorrow again, shipping all the patches, because it is a lot of work, but I enjoy doing it for the audience. But with that, we'll see you all tomorrow. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Heroem Slava, get some rest, and we'll see you then. And good night.
Есть.